Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you. If you could take your seats. I am calling the meeting of the October 21st, 2024 West Hollywood City Council meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock p.m. Will Krish, Samantha, please come up and say the Pledge of Allegiance for us all?
Pledge to the allegiance of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, and under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job, Krish. You certainly know how to control a room. Right into it. Great job. Had us all jumping very quickly off of our feet. All right, Madam City Clerk, and I'm sorry, I've lost my voice 13 times, I feel. Madam City Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Yes, of course, Mayor. Councilmember Heilman.
Here.
Councilmember Meister.
Here.
Councilmember Shine.
Present.
Vice Mayor Byers.
Here.
And Mayor Erickson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Madam City Attorney, will you please provide your report on closed session?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. The City Council convened a closed session at 5:30 this evening. There were no members of the public here to speak on public comment. The Council discussed the 2 items of business listed on the posted agenda, took no reportable action, and finished the closed session at 5:36.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Quickest closed session ever. All right, Madam City Clerk, are there any changes from staff for tonight on the agenda?
No changes, Mayor.
Wonderful. Do my colleagues have any requested changes? Councilmember Heilman.
I'm wondering if we can move F2, F4, and F5 to consent.
I'm fine with those. F2, I believe that was the, the grants in the schools. And then you said F4? F4 is the vibes. And yep.
I'd like to talk about F5. I mean, I have some questions.
Sure. Can we move F1 or F3? F1 is the
Joint study session.
the study session.
I can move that. I'm going to be flying back that day, so I hope I will be here on time.
Wonderful. Is that okay, Councilmember Meister? Great. And then F3 is the Human Services Commission and Available Social Service Programs, the increasing visibility one.
I have questions on that.
Sounds good. Okay, so we are going to move F1 to consent, F2 to consent. We're going to keep F3 on the agenda. We're going to move F4 to the consent, and then we're going to keep F5 on the agenda. Sounds good? Any other changes? Yes, Councilmember Meister.
Yeah, I'd like to pull B13 from consent. That's a request to join the Sepulveda Transit Corridor for All Advocacy Coalition.
Sure. All right. Anything else? Nope. Is there a motion? A second. All right. Let's go ahead and vote. It's not working on our end. Let's do a voice vote.
Councilmember Heilman.
Aye.
Councilmember Meister.
Aye, and I'd also like to note my no vote on B8 on micro units.
Thank you. Councilmember Shine.
Yes, and also noting my no vote on B8 as well, micro units.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Byers.
Yes.
And Mayor Erickson.
Yes. Thank you. Do my colleagues have any Levine Act disclosures? Councilmember Heilman? No. Vice Mayor Byers?
No.
I do not. Councilmember Shine?
Nope.
Councilmember Meister? Wonderful. Do my colleagues have any adjournment motions? Councilmember Heilman?
Yes, unfortunately, I have 3 adjournment motions tonight. First, I'd like to adjourn in memory of Amnon Agra. He was the husband of Helene Mashar, our longtime lobbyist for the city of West Hollywood. He died September 20th in Sacramento. He and Helene were married for 30 years. He was a graduate of Columbia University and received a PhD in sociology from Stanford University. Beyond his professional accomplishments, he was a World War II buff, an expert chess player, a champion Scrabble player, and an avid bridge player. In their many years together, he and Helene pursued their love of travel, having visited many countries around the globe. Besides being a husband to Helene, he was a father to David, father-in-law to Kelly, and a grandfather to their 2 grandchildren. Beyond his many accomplishments, people will remember him as a genuinely kind, generous, and gentle man, a true mensch. We extend our sincerest condolences to Helene and her entire family during this difficult time. Secondly, I'd request that we adjourn in memory of Eduardo Duran. Eduardo Duran is the father of former council member John Duran. Ed, as he was known, passed away last week at the age of 90. He was a proud U.S. Marine and a Korean War veteran. He was a beloved father of 4, a devoted grandfather to 7, and a cherished great-grandfather to 4. He loved attending West Hollywood Pride, where he cheered for his favorite organizations, PFLAG and the Gay Men's Chorus. He also proudly cast his ballot for Kamala Harris before his passing. We extend our deepest condolences to John and the entire Duran family during this difficult time, and I would request, of course, that we adjourn in his memory. And finally, I'd request that we adjourn in memory of Grafton Tanqueray Jr. Grafton Tanqueray was born in Los Angeles in 1928. He excelled both academically and athletically. He attended USC on dual scholarships and lettered in swimming and water polo. After earning his MBA from Harvard Business School, he served in the U.S. Air Force before returning to Los Angeles to work at Litton Industries and later Electronic Memories. Grafton was a longtime resident of West Hollywood. He lived in a very distinctive building at Crescent Heights and Fountain. He was involved in the city from the earliest days, representing property owners, primarily apartment owners, in West Hollywood during its early years. Although he and I sparred on many occasions regarding rent control, Grafton was always a gentleman and always concerned about the best interests of West Hollywood. His impact on the community was always significant, and he was a dedicated resident of our community. On behalf of the council, I'd like to extend our condolences to his family, including his wife Anna, his children, and his 5 grandchildren, and I would request that we adjourn in his memory as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Heilman. Vice Mayor Byers, do you have any? Councilmember Meister?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to adjourn in memory of Keith H. Walker. Keith Walker was a former broadcast journalist and public relations executive, passed away on September 2nd in West Hollywood at the age of 93. He was born in Delavan, Illinois on July 1st, 1931. Keith was the first in his family to attend college, earning a degree in journalism from Northwestern University. After serving as a commissioned officer in the U.S. Navy, he embarked on a career in broadcast journalism before transitioning to public relations in Los Angeles. Keith played a key role in the golden era of MGM Studios, working with prominent Hollywood figures, and later spent nearly 35 years overseeing the prestigious Pritzker Architecture Prize for the Hyatt Foundation, honoring global contributions to architecture. We extend our deepest condolences to his family and loved ones. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. I have one. I would like to adjourn in memory of Esther. Esther tragically passed away earlier this month, a result of a fatal collision on Fountain Avenue. Her sudden loss has deeply impacted her family, friends, and the entire community. She was a mother, a grandmother, and a wife. and we stand together in honoring her memory. Our thoughts and heartfelt condolences go out to all those who knew and loved Esther during this difficult time. And if anyone in the community has any video or any type of information, the family is looking for it to help bring the individual to justice. Thank you. All right, I goofed, and I forgot to do our land acknowledgement, so I'm gonna get canceled for sure. But I would like to bring up Assemblymember Rick Chavez-Zabur, who offered to do it. Thank you so much, Assemblymember.
Good evening. The City of West Hollywood City Council acknowledges that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kizh peoples.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember. All right, we are now gonna bring back up Krish because we have a little special something for you, so come on up. Thank you so much, Krish. All right, we're going to move on to public comment. The City Council values your comments. However, pursuant to the Brown Act, the Council cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. The public comment period is limited to 20 minutes with 2 minutes allotted for each speaker. This public comment period is to address the City Council on consent calendar items, other agenda items, or items of general interest within the jurisdiction of the City Council. Another period is reserved for general comment later in the meeting for those that could not be heard at this time. Public hearing testimony will only be taken at the time of the hearing. If you go over your 2 minutes and do not respond to the city clerk's notification that your time has expired, your microphone will be muted. If you signed up to speak on both consent calendar items and general public comment, as well as items that was moved to consent calendar, you may take this time to speak during the public comment period on your consent calendar items. You may also sign up to speak during the second public comment period for your general public comment. Lastly, speakers should not bring any items to the podium other than prepared written materials and/or a statement. Madam City Clerk, how many speakers do we have?
We have 16 in council chambers.
I have one in Zoom for the consent calendar.
Wonderful. We're gonna stick to 20 minutes today, so we'll get that done. But why don't we go to our one Zoom for consent calendar, and then we'll come to chambers. And then, Madam City Clerk, I'll do a timer, but do you want to make sure you do the 20-minute timer as well?
Our first speaker on Zoom is Sarah White. Sarah, please press *6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Sarah, go ahead.
All right, well, if Sarah comes back, we'll go back. Let's go to our first people. Our thing isn't working, so will you call them?
Yes, the first speaker is Jimmy Palmieri,
Wonderful.
followed by Mikey Friedman.
Wonderful.
Good evening. It's great to see all of you. I just want to thank Councilmember Shine and Mayor Erickson for putting the Human Services visibility on the agenda. It's so important for us, and I'm not sure that everyone understands why. It's not about us personally. It's not like that we want to be on TV or we want to be this or we want. It's about transparency and for the folks at home to be able to see what their $6.5 million is going towards. That being said, if the city sites don't get enough hits. I understand that, but some of us have very active social media pages, and these can be posted there, and lots of people will see it, and lots of people will access services that they just don't know exist. It's truly important, and each one of us comes here every meeting to let you know what's happening, and that's on our time, and we only get 2 minutes, and it's really rough for us to really let you know what's going on, and the folks at home can't possibly understand because we're speaking so fast we nearly swallow our tongues. But that being said, I truly am appreciative of this, and I just hope that it passes without any troubles. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Okay, great. Mikey Friedman to be followed by Ron Friedrich.
Mikey Friedman, West Hollywood. At the last council meeting, the Commission and Advisory Board report was pulled from the consent calendar in order pretty much to discuss one board, rent stabilization, and one former board member, Zakiya Wright. The mayor and Seppi Shines cited the unacceptable number of their absences and their subsequent dismissal from the board. Zakiya, however, in an op-ed showing facts, disproved what these two alleged. Apparently, the main reason to pull that particular agenda item was to smear Zakiya, who was competing with Erickson for a seat on the city council. That was not only a conflict of interest, but underhanded, dishonest, and shameful. So tonight, since you have put the commission and board report on the consent calendar, I'd like to pull it off and talk about the important Older Adults Advisory Board report, because it shows that at that meeting, one public commenter and 3 board members all complained in their remarks about the hazards of delivery robots and scooters. Why are you sweeping this under the rug by putting their report into consent and not discussing it? The council majority are making a big deal out of wanting to widen sidewalks on Fountain, supposedly for ADA compliance, but are doing nothing about scooters and robots, which endanger us and take away our access every damn day. You often preach one thing but do another. In this case, you are touting equal access, but in truth, you're keeping us from our equal access. That is why both the OAAB and the DAB have awarded me for speaking out about your hypocrisy regarding this issue. They want your words to match your actions.
Thanks so much, Mikey. Ron Friedrich to be followed by Steve Martin. Ron Friedrich, is he here? Hold on one second, Steve. No? Great. Steve Martin to be followed by David Nash.
Steve Martin, West Hollywood. Thank you, Council. And thank you for celebrating World AIDS Day. And I hope that we get an update on the valet at Barney's Beanery as to how his health is. I mean, he was a victim of violent crime in West Hollywood, another victim of violent crime because of, unfortunately, our decrease in law enforcement. The city is fast approaching its 40th anniversary, and this should be a time for us to be celebrating. But instead, there's a certain heaviness about the city. The city feels like it's a place that's under occupation. Where there was once a vibrant civic democracy, what we now have is outside interests who have really hijacked our democratic process. In West Hollywood, our democracy has been skewered by the amount of contributions, $250,000 by Unite Here. Now, I supported Unite Here when they were interested in workers' rights and hotel workers' rights, but now they've taken on a whole agenda of taking over the city council and turning us into part of their political machine. The interest of Unite Here is not the interest of the residents. Decisions are being made outside of City Hall without our participation, and local democracy is being undermined. The agenda of Unite Here is not ours. And where are they getting this $250,000? Most of it from developers like the Viper Room and places like Latham and Watkins that have given $7,000 to the mayor's race. But we were founded 40 years ago on empowering people And now we seem to have a bunch of corroborators who are interested in disempowering the residents of West Hollywood. So I'm just asking that the residents here stand up and resist the occupation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. David Nash to be followed by Sam Borelli on behalf of the Human Services Commission. Hello, David.
Hi, thank you. David Nash, West Hollywood resident. Good evening. I noticed on the consent calendar, there's progress being made on the Viper Room project. I'm sure the New London Hotel will not be happy to see that the project is moving forward. But in my memory, it's been talked about for years that there were problems with the height of the building, problems with their plans for displays and advertisement. But what I remember most is that it's another project that's to include affordable housing units. The last I heard, they were up to 14. I know that Mayor Erickson has boasted to me that he's been able to up those numbers on occasion. I think this would be a good time to try it again. And there are places all over Sunset and Santa Monica Boulevard, although Sunset seems to be moving ahead, that need renovation. The French Market is sitting there empty. There's that lot you all bought that has the poisoning from the dry cleaning unit that's just sitting there. I don't know what's happening to it. But much of the architecture on Santa Monica Boulevard is past its prime, and we need a lot of rebuilding here in the city. On a happier note, I want to say that this Wednesday night at 5:30, we have light refreshments served to introduce the Disability Advisory Board's award night, which officially starts at 6 p.m. It's a really fun night for us where we get to honor people and organizations who do outstanding work that befriends people in the disabilities community. I'm glad that we'll see some of the council members there to help us acknowledge our winners, and I encourage anyone listening tonight to come join us and learn more about the Disability Advisory Board and organizations that we honor.
Thank you so much, David. Sam Borelli to be followed by Yola DeRay.
Good evening, Sam Borelli, representing the Human Services Commission. October is Domestic Violence and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month. Domestic and intimate partner violence impacts people of all ages, genders, races, sexual orientations, cultures, and religions. It occurs in all types of relationships and can involve different forms of abuse, including physical, sexual, verbal, economic, emotional, and include intimidation as well as controlling and isolating behaviors. Marginalized groups, including people with disabilities, members of the LGBTQ Commission, and people with language barriers face an increased risk of violence as perpetrators often exploit their vulnerabilities. There are multiple resources available to help, and the city's partner agencies are trained and have tools to protect the privacy and security of those in need. The Stop Violence program provides counseling, advocacy, and housing assistance. The Legal Advocacy Project for Survivors provides trauma-informed case management, safety planning, and legal representation. The HOPE program provides 24/7 multilingual crisis hotline, emergency shelter counseling, court accompaniment, and case management services. Let me be clear, these life-changing opportunities are available to all community members and are at no cost. If you or a loved one or someone you know is experiencing any form of violence or intimidation, the city is here for you. Let us help. Visit weho.org/human-services or call the city's Human Services Division at 323-848-6510. It is for reasons like this that my colleagues and I advocate for being televised, so that one person might make a difference in their life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. Yola DeRay to be followed by Kathy Blavis.
Good evening, Council. Yola Dore, 30-plus year resident of West Hollywood, and proud to be. Love is, and don't forget it, no more hate, people. Let's not even turn on the TV or hear hate coming from anyone's mouth, because West Hollywood, even at 40, doesn't believe in hate. Now that I've said that, I want to tell you the real reason I came. I came to say the same thing that David did. This Wednesday and this whole month has been about disability. Whether you have a disability, whether you know someone with a disability, know that it's something that could happen to anyone at any given time. So we encourage you to join us, learn more about disability, see our service award winners who have exemplified the best there is in the organizations, businesses, nonprofits, and individuals that have been all-stars in our community. See you on Wednesday.
Thanks so much, Yola. Kathy Blavis, to be followed by David Edgert.
Good evening, Kathy Blavis, City of West Hollywood. Glass change. I spoke the other night at Planning and Public Safety Commission meetings about being heartbroken about the recent Trumpian hate speech and cyberbullying ex-council member John D'Amico is spewing. Tonight, my feelings have changed to utter disappointment and sadness about someone I used to so highly respect. Resorting to calling Public Safety Commissioner George Nickel, a city council candidate, paranoid because he cares about public safety for all, speaks volume about how Mr. D'Amico must feel about the upcoming election. Many in the community are devastated by his attacks, name-calling, and hate speech. On another note, I'm really getting sick and tired of having to defend myself and the cause I represent, opposing bike lanes on Fountain. A safer Fountain Avenue should be a given, and it's absurd to suggest otherwise. Proponents of bike lanes are portraying us as being against making Fountain Avenue safe and not caring about traffic accidents. Really? And sorry, and Mayor Erickson, you have called community out for spreading lies and misinformation and scaring residents. I have been told that you're telling people, both in person and in emails, that the streetscapes widening sidewalks will happen first and could take years, to be followed by bike lanes. However, the Engage WeHo website, right here on Vision Corridor, the project will be implemented in phases. Phase 1 will implement protected bike lanes. Phase 2 will implement sidewalk widening and landscape improvements. Now, unless Phase 2 is happening before Phase 1, I'm afraid the misinformation is being put out is actually
David Edgert,
coming
to be
from
followed
you.
by Wendy Goldman. David, to be followed by Wendy.
Good evening, David Eckert, a West Hollywood resident. I would like to speak about my experience with the Fountain Avenue Streetscape Project's outreach process. With lack of public outreach since 2022, I decided to take action and see what my neighbors along Fountain Avenue knew of this project. I took it upon myself to walk from La Cienega to Crescent Heights and knock on people's doors, and was disheartened that 9 out of 10 residents were unaware of what was proposed or ever had received outreach with the 13,000 postcards in 2021. This comes to my point of why a rally was organized by WeHo for the People and why I participated. The community hasn't been informed, and concerns for traffic calming and enforcement has taken a back seat to adding protected bike lanes, which we all agree are needed, but the current ideas lack full thought. Most safety issues can be blamed on the lack of enforcement of jaywalking, speed, and unsafe lack of left turn lanes. Now add into the equation cyclists and e-scooters who also don't always follow the traffic lights and laws. The stress on what the street requires has become too much. What I ask and want is to put a pause on adding cyclists or e-scooters onto unsafe streets until the traffic issues are first resolved. Protect them as well. It is also imperative that emergency service vehicles and our sheriffs have as much mobility as cyclists needs. Lastly, council has already proven that safety is a top priority for all. You can't keep adding new forms of mobility into the mix until a clear path for safety is figured out. Both rallies encourage safety as priority. We just don't see eye to eye on having to penalize neighborhood needs over protection for minority mobility. And hopefully one day the mobility will become major.
Thank you, David. Janet, hold on one second, Wendy. You're good, thank you, David. We had a person who was speaking, we're in general public comment right now, right? Okay, we had a person on consent. Can we try to go her? And you said that she's ready now.
Sarah, you're our next speaker. Press *6 to unmute. Hopefully it works this time.
John, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yep.
My name. Okay, wonderful. I'm sorry. After all this time, I still haven't figured out how to unmute myself. But my name is Sarah. I know some of you, but for those that I don't know, I'm a longtime resident of West Hollywood. I have 2 children, one of which goes to West Hollywood Elementary. I'm also a full-time pediatrician, and I'm on the board of Friends of West Hollywood Elementary. And I wanted to speak very briefly on behalf of the section S2, which is the grants in the schools program, and restructuring, reimagining the budget and the structure. So as part of Friends of West Hollywood Elementary, our whole goal, purpose is to raise funds for the school to be able to support all of the programs that we otherwise would not be supported, and these include very essential functions for a school, such as physical education, arts, and music. What is currently being provided is the $3,000, which is it's so appreciated, but feels like not a meaningful impact. And so as you guys think about how we're restructuring these grants, I would implore you to think about the difference between public and private schools and how your only public elementary school in West Hollywood gets funded, and making a meaningful impact in the way that you provide those. So as an example, we fund salaries, so our PE teacher. We spend $150,000 every year just to support our PE program. Our teachers' aides, all of these things are supported by the parents and by our fundraising. So I appreciate you guys bringing this as an item, and I hope that you consider those in future grants.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Wendy Goldman, who will be our last speaker for this first public comment section.
Wendy Goldman, West Hollywood resident, block captain for Cynthia Sunset Neighborhood Watch. Good evening, Mayor Erickson, council members, and residents. I'm here to speak about several issues in my area. I attended the last meeting of the Older Adults Advisory Board and Disability Advisory Board, addressing mutual issues of pedestrian safety, requests for repairs and improvements. The Public Safety Commission of October 14th heard a report listing citations given for sidewalk scooter riders, yet not one included enforcement on Sunset Strip, where it is a daily safety problem. I spoke to the Public Safety Commissioners about concern calls from residents related to an uptick in the number of home burglaries on Doheny, Cynthia, Vista Grande, Hilldale, and Hammond. I feel that we must make all efforts to reduce the risk of similar crimes. I've spoken with City Manager David Wilson, Jackie Rocco, Danny Rivas, Helen Collins, Vito Adamitis, Walter Davis, Steve Smith, and others regarding service requests that I have made on the app with no timeline for action. Our quality of life issues, including a growing number of vacant properties, which number 5 at last count, beg the question of establishing a city park in the Cynthia Sunset area. There is a lack of green space in this neighborhood. We need to provide the west side of the city with a park. It's needed to provide amenities that all other parts of the city enjoy. This proposed park would include a dog park and community garden, a restful urban habitat to attract wildlife. My dream will only become a reality with your support. Please find solutions to long-standing requests from my area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. All right, we will move there were 8 other public commenters to the end, and we are going to, it should hopefully be a quick meeting, so it shouldn't be too long. I'd say that now, cursing us, but I apologize. So we will now move on to the city manager's report. City Manager Wilson, will you please provide us with the city manager's report?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. I do have a few announcements, but before I do that, I want to invite Assembly Member, excuse me, Rick Zuber up to provide an update on legislation in Sacramento.
Yay.
Good evening. Thank you, City Manager Wilson and Hernan. Good evening, Mayor Erickson and members of the council. As you know, my name is Rick Chavez-Zuber. I represent the 51st District, and I'm very proud that that includes the entire city of West Hollywood. As a member of the Progressive, Environmental, LGBTQ, Latino, Armenian, Native American, and Jewish caucuses, we had a very busy year. I'm also proud to report that about a year ago, Speaker Rivas appointed me to serve as chair of the Assembly Democratic Caucus, and in that role, I'm part of the Speaker's leadership team, and part of that role is assisting him in developing priorities for the caucus and achieving a consensus within the caucus on chief priorities. With that in mind, I just wanted to give you a few key updates about what happened at our 2-year legislative session. So first, you've all read that we had to address a nearly $50 billion shortfall, and that meant that we had to make some very tough choices. I'm proud that as we did that, we were able to preserve key priorities, including preserving education funding, not really cutting vital programs like CalFresh and Medi-Cal, which protect and serve our most vulnerable Californians. Cuts to housing and homeless programs were limited, but there were some unfortunate cuts to climate and environmental programs. Some of that will be made up, hopefully, with the passage by the voters of a climate bond, which will generate billions of dollars for clean energy, coastal resilience, heat mitigation, wildfire prevention, and clean water. This year, we also had we dealt with a number of bills related to artificial intelligence. That is something that obviously poses great promise for people, but also great risks. One of the things I worry about a lot is that with artificial intelligence, it could really improve the human condition, but if it ends up with 5 billionaires owning everything and people without work, that is something that, portends for a dystopian future that we have to work again, that we have to make sure doesn't happen. And of course, that is something that is, it creates great challenges to people that are working in the entertainment industry. And so we had a number of bills in that front, and I expect that to continue into next year. Closer to home, hospitals around the state have been upgrading their infrastructure to reach the 2030 seismic standards. One of those hospitals that needs to do more, as you know, is Cedars-Sinai, which is partially in West Hollywood's jurisdiction. There was a bill to extend this time frame that I did not support because it did not have sufficient guardrails to assure that actually the seismic standards were being upheld. I do think that Cedars needs help, and we need to do something to sort of help Cedars meet standards, because as you know, you've been considering their applications. They actually have to do a lot of work to sort of move into swing space. They've got to create that, and so they will need longer than 2030, and I've been working closely with them. The bill that I did not support ultimately was vetoed by the governor for the same reasons I didn't support the bill, but hopefully we will be able to be focusing on addressing Cedars, which is such an important contributor to our communities. As you know, turning to my own bills, I am very proud to share that 12 of my bills passed both the Assembly and the Senate and were signed into law by Governor Newsom this year. As you know, one of my key priorities, as I know is one of every single members of this council, has been to make sure that we're creating more housing, making housing more affordable, and keeping people in their homes. We know that it is more cost-effective and infinitely more humane to take a preventative approach to homelessness. And we also know that California needs more housing, but in ways that respect existing neighborhoods and bring the kind of affordable, livable communities that we all want. With that in mind, I'm proud that the governor signed AB 2525, which was sponsored by Mayor Bass, which addresses the problem that we're facing with so many people living in RVs. One of the things I didn't realize is that 22% of the folks that are unhoused in the city of Los Angeles are living in RVs. And so this bill actually gives the city of Los Angeles more tools to move people from RVs into permanent and temporary housing by allowing the state of California to lease unused land to store RVs as we're basically moving folks into that program. A second bill that was passed into law, which I view as a homelessness bill, is AB 2477. That bill empowers foster youth that are transitioning into adulthood from foster care to allow them to accumulate cash savings, which would have previously disqualified them from the state benefits that they are entitled to as they're moving from their youth into adulthood. So that bill now allows former foster youth to save more than $10,000, which, as you know, with the cost of housing, people need to have those kinds of nest eggs, and we shouldn't be discouraging that. And so that law was passed by both houses and signed into law. And of course, you remember last year, because you all suggested this, AB 1620, a bill was introduced and recommended by the City of West Hollywood that allows people in rent-stabilized upper floor units with physical disabilities to move into first floor units without having their rent reset. And it's thanks to advocates in the community like Lola Dore,
right there.
Dore, that this new law will improve the lives of countless people with disabilities in the years to come. One of the disappointments that we faced was on AB 2498, the California Housing and Security Act, which West Hollywood was a sponsor and supporter of. That bill provided a new pilot program with rent subsidies for people that are highly rent insecure. That bill got stalled on the Senate side, but we are going to bring that back this year, hopefully with more support. What happened is that got caught in sort of the interplay between the Senate and the Assembly. We actually had found some money in the budget to fund the program, but we were competing for that, and actually a Senate bill was competing for the money that we had sort of lightly allocated in the budget for the bill. And so because of that, the bill got stopped in Senate appropriations, but the bill that was competing for the money then got vetoed by the governor. So we're actually going to be back at the drawing board. That other bill was a good bill too, but so we're going to bring that back this year. On retail crime, as you all know, and I want to thank you all for actually making this council chamber the site of one of our hearings this year. Speaker Rivas announced the Select Committee on Retail Theft and named me as its chair. Our work led to 10 new public safety laws that Governor Newsom signed, including the lead bill, which was one that was authored by me and Speaker Rivas. That bill focuses on stopping organized crime rings by creating a new crime of serial retail theft with a penalty of up to 3 years for possession of stolen property with the intent to resell. It also specifies that evidence of intent can include repeated conduct or possession of a quantity of goods inconsistent with personal use. It also expands the tools that police officers have to arrest for shoplifting based on a witness's sworn statement or video footage of the crime. Importantly, it also helps to get to the root cause of theft by expanding the use of diversion and rehabilitation programs like drug courts. And finally, it protects businesses and retailers that report retail crime by ensuring that they will not have nuisance actions brought against them for doing that. Of course, that's not a problem here in West Hollywood, but there's other parts of the state where that has been. The remaining bills also crack down on the theft and sale of stolen items. They increase the tools to deal with smash and grabs, and they try to close down the market for these bills. I will say that we worked very hard to establish consequences for retail crime without going back to the days where California was punishing too many minor crimes with extremely long prison sentences. Data and research tells us that the best way to deter crime is not the blunt approach of just adding more prison time. It's really ensuring that law enforcement has the tools to apprehend people engaging in crime and that there is a real consequence for committing those crimes. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have a 20-year prison sentence when a jail time or a prison sentence of a shorter amount of time is inadequate deterrent. With that, on civil rights, last year, the governor signed AB 5, the Safe and Supportive Schools Act, which I know so many of you supported here, which provides public school teachers and staff who are on the front lines of supporting California students with the training and support they need to better serve LGBTQ+ and all students. This year, I was proud that the governor signed AB 2258, the Enhanced Consumer Protections for Preventive Care Act. What was happening there is that the Federal Affordable Care Act is really what requires insurance companies to cover things like PrEP for a lot of the federal programs and for employers-based programs. And there was a challenge to that in a Texas court. It basically struck down the regulations in the Affordable Care Act that provided this protection. My bill, which we brought this year, actually codifies those. Hopefully, that bill's on that case is on appeal. But what this is doing is it's making sure that if we lose that case, we have actually put in California law the preventive care requirements that were in the Affordable Care Act, so we can make sure that people that want mammograms covered for breast cancer, that PrEP is covered for people that need it, that all these preventive care items are going to be covered because it's required in California law if federal law doesn't require it. I was also a co-author, and I know many of you were very active in the passage of the Safety Act, which I was a co-sponsor. It provides new protections against forced outings of LGBTQ students in California schools. I was proud that that was with a lot of opposition, but that was signed into law was passed by both houses and signed into law by Governor Newsom. Also on the subject of civil rights, this year we saw a massive spike in anti-Semitic hate crimes and incidents, including on college campuses. I've been appalled and have been using my voice and office to stand up against the anti-Semitism that we're seeing. Following weeks of deeply disturbing events at UCLA, I called on the Office of Civil Rights to conduct a federal investigation into potential violations of the Civil Rights Act at UCLA. And was disappointed with the university's response to both protecting the rights of Jewish students, but then also later protecting the rights of the protesters when they failed to protect them from an outside mob coming into UCLA at the end of that episode. I'm also working this year to ensure that we are preserving and improving ethnic studies, making sure that ethnic studies meets the goals, which is to make sure that there's windows into the lives of ethnic and racial communities for people that are not part of those communities, helping people understand the challenges that those communities face, and also mirrors for those communities so that folks can see themselves in the curriculum. But we also need to make sure that basically in these very sensitive areas that the curriculum is basically result in a safe and supportive environment for all students, including Jewish students. And so we are actually going to be moving a bill forward that is really intended not to undermine ethnic studies, but to strengthen it, to make sure that it achieves its goals, but at the same time is making sure that our schools are safe for all kids. I'm also proud that AB 2613, the Jacqueline Marie Zabur Rare Disease Advisory Council, was signed into law by Governor Newsom. It will actually create a new advisory council that will give a seat at the table for people that are living with rare diseases. One of the things I saw in my sister's illness was that because rare diseases are rare, they don't have large lobbies that are sort of helping government agencies understand the challenges that people living with rare diseases face. So California was one of the few states that did not have an official Rare Disease Advisory Council. That will change next year. We are looking for a home for this. Hopefully it'll be at UCLA or one of the UC systems. We also passed 2 bills on gun safety, AB 2907 and 2917. 2907 enhances protections for Californians who face domestic violence, stalking, and elder abuse by making sure that if there's a gun violence restraining order that is actually enforced. These are things that were actually required in the civil restraining orders, but were not required in the criminal restraining orders. So we put those same procedures to make sure that guns are confiscated from folks that are at risk into those restraining orders. And then 2917 updates and refines our GVO order and draws the civil court's attention to hate-based or politically motivated threats of violence. And this bill was sponsored by Everytown for Gun Safety in the San Francisco City Attorney's Office. I'm coming to a close. I only have a couple more pages. Last thing I wanted to, and I'm condensing them. Last thing I wanted to say, I mentioned that we actually passed an historic climate bond, AB 3, which will be on the ballot this year. That will result in significant funding to help us wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, and actually will fund clean water. There's significant funding for the Santa Monica Mountains and the Baldwin Hills Conservatories in that bond. And so I was proud to serve on the steering committee that shaped the bond, and I'm proud that we passed that. Looking to next year, we're currently working on our package of bills for next year. Invite your input, as you have had in other years. I've really valued the input of the city of West Hollywood in shaping my bill package. One of the issues that I will tell you that I will be focused on and will be one of my key priorities is keeping Hollywood in California. I think you all have been reading in the papers, and I have actually been having conversations with the entertainment unions and with the studios and with just normal folks. But as you have probably been hearing, employment in our region is really down. People are really, we not only have unemployment, but we have significant underemployment, as many productions are being recruited out of the state of California. And so I've spoken to the speaker about helping him spearhead a strategy to address these issues, and I know that you all share the goal of making sure that we actually have good, high-paying jobs and we keep the entertainment industry here in the state of California. So in conclusion, I just want to thank you all for being such a strong partner. You know, while we find ourselves in tumultuous times as a nation and world, and while there's never a dull moment in West Hollywood civic life, I believe that ultimately there's more that unites us than divides us. I want to thank you all for your service to the city of West Hollywood and to the Assembly District 51. Just know that my door is always open. My staff is always here to help folks that are having problems with state agencies, and just want to thank you for your partnership.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. And thank you for being busy enough for all of us up here, up in Sacramento. And just big thank you to your entire staff. They're at all of our city events, Robert, Josh, all of them, and they represent you so well as you're up there doing. So thank you so much on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Assembly members. Just a few other announcements. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power will be replacing a water main line on La Cienega Boulevard between Santa Monica Boulevard and Fountain Avenue. Work begins November 4th and will be completed in approximately 3 months. The working hours will be Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and during the weekends and holidays there will be regular access and street parking. The City of West Hollywood's CARE team, Behavioral Health Initiative, is one component of Los Angeles County's alternative crisis response. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and field intervention teams provide free, confidential support to anyone experiencing a crisis. They are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information, about the West Hollywood Care Team pilot program. There are brochures in the back that look like this, or you can visit weho.org/care team. And then finally, save the date. We will be celebrating West Hollywood's West Hollywood Day on November 21st, 2024, at the PDC in the Silver Screen Theater from 5:30 p.m. till about 9 p.m. There'll be more information available on weho.org/WehoDay. And that concludes my announcements.
I just have a few questions, or for you. I won't go first. Councilmember Howland, do you have any questions for the city manager? Vice Mayor Byers, Councilmember Meister, Councilmember Shine? Could you provide an update on the lot at Santa Monica Boulevard and Crescent Heights?
Yes, so that lot is currently under construction. There were delays due to Southern California Edison plan changes, and also some slope issues on Havenhurst. Those have been resolved. Construction is continuing. We hope to have it paved by Halloween and full completion by the middle of November.
Great. I've been getting some comments regarding coyotes in our neighborhood. Is it possible for you and the staff, if my colleagues agree, to host something similar to Beverly Hills' coyote convening? I know we have an 18-page coyote report, but it's a little bit long to read, but maybe there's something you all could do and come back to us.
Yeah, so we do have a coyote management plan. The City Council directed that we establish one in 2017, and that was adopted by resolution in 2018. It's available on the city's website. It is pretty comprehensive, but if the council does want an informational session, that's something that would have to be done by a council initiative, which can come back at a future meeting.
Wonderful. And then we just got an email regarding an arrest that was made in the community. Would you mind providing an update on that?
Yeah, and so it was a very recent arrest, and very little information can be provided, but Lieutenant Fanny Lampkin is here, and she will provide any information that she can.
Thank you so much, Fanny.
Good evening, everyone. Fanny Lapkin, Service Area Lieutenant, West Hollywood. We did receive, we have great news. Our EPT team was out looking for our attempted murder suspect, and he was arrested. I can't provide any further details because it is scheduled to be filed tomorrow.
And this was the Barney's Beanery?
The Barney's Beanery. So so yes, it's very. We had many, and thank you to the community because we had many tips on the individual. We had tips that he was no longer in the city, but he trajected from Hollywood to West Hollywood, and the deputies were looking for him, and they found him. And with the excellent work that our detectives are doing, they're going to be filing charges tomorrow.
Thank you so much. All right, if that concludes it, keep going, David, sorry.
I would just add, there is a press conference scheduled for tomorrow at 9:30 at the Sheriff's Station.
Yep. Does that conclude your report? Thank you, Lieutenant.
Yes, that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. All right. Madam City Clerk, may I have the impact of the fiscal impact on tonight's consent calendar while staff comes down for the first public hearing?
Yes, Mayor. The fiscal impact on consent with the additions of consent item F1, F2, F4, exclusion of B3, and noting no votes for Councilmember Meister and Councilmember Shine on B8. Exclusion of B13, excuse me. Is $516,000 in expenditures, $1,680 in revenues, and $4,194 in waive fees.
All right, there's a motion and a second. What? Are things not working, so why don't we do a voice vote?
Okay.
Oh my goodness, there's a delay. Councilmember Heilman. Councilmember Meister.
Aye.
Councilmember Shine.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Byers.
Yes.
And Mayor Erickson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to move along to our first and only public hearing tonight, zone text amendment to enable the issuance of demolition permits for vacant properties that pose public safety risks. The public hearing is now open. Are there any disclosures from my colleagues? Nope. Nope. Wonderful. Madam City Clerk, how was this hearing noticed?
As required by law.
Wonderful. Staff, will you please introduce yourself and present a report? And I'm going to get a cough drop, so I'll be right back.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. Nick Marasich, Community Development Director. I'm joined by our Long-Range Planning Manager, Francisco Contreras, and Senior Planner Tahira Ferris, who will be giving the presentation for this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, who's out of the room, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Again, my name is Tahira Ferris, Senior Planner with Long Range Planning, and I'm going to present the zone text amendment for demolition permits for vacant properties that pose an imminent public safety threat. Next slide, please. Oh, I have it, thank you. So I'll give a quick background on the zone text amendment and then just go straight into the proposed amendment and our recommendation from staff. So just to remind people of where we are, vacant property is defined in Chapter 9.64 of the West Hollywood Municipal Code as a property that is substantially vacant, unoccupied for more than, or abandoned for more than 45 days, and where construction pursuant to an active building permit has not begun, permit is not taking place, or where an inspection by the Building and Safety Division pursuant to an active building permit has not been conducted within the previous 90 days. The city created a vacant property registration program in 2019, which provides a system for tracking and addressing vacant properties. These properties are classified into 4 different categories of stable, at-risk, problematic, or failed. There are currently 56 vacant properties within the city. Their categorization listed on the slide here. And over the past several months, there has been a growing number of complaints to the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station, as well as to the city's code enforcement, about vacant properties being broken into and used for shelter and having unintended or having public safety impacts to both the individuals that are breaking into the property as well as to the surrounding community members. It is unlikely that these types of buildings are going to be repaired by their owners or even reoccupied, and they do pose public safety concerns. And so therefore we are proposing a new mechanism to deal with vacant properties within the city that may generally fall into the category of failed vacant properties, but they also may fall outside of any of these categories and still pose an imminent public safety risk. So in March of this year, the City Council directed staff to work with the city attorney and create a process which would authorize the demolition of vacant properties that pose risks to public safety in both commercial and residentially zoned properties. In August, the City Council then issued another directive to expedite the process, to process a zone text amendment according to the following schedule, going to Planning Commission in September and coming back before the City Council in October. So that brings us to tonight. The zone text amendment would have a 2-year sunset date to allow us time to assess the impacts of this program and determine if we do want to make it a more permanent process going forward. So ahead of that 2-year sunset date, staff will return to City Council with an update and get direction on whether to make that a more permanent program or amend it or even repeal it at the time if that's necessary. Planning Commission did recommend approval of the zone text amendment in September. So I'll go into a quick overview of what is in the zone text amendment. There are current requirements in Chapter 19.50 of the Municipal Code, which includes provisions for demolition permits. Section 19.50.020 states that discretionary approval of a demolition permit is required before any demo of a building or a structure, before a substantial remodel, as well as before any structure is moved from any site within the city. Additionally, the code requires concurrent processing of demolition permits with any other required discretionary permits, with just 2 exceptions. The first exception is when there's an imminent hazard posed by the building as determined by the building official. So this is currently a very high standard to meet. It refers to structural deficiencies within the building itself, not necessarily hazards that are caused by unsafe use of the property or folks being on the property. So there's a specific scope for when that exception can be used. And then the second instance is when the Planning Commission approves an interim use that would satisfy a public need on a vacant property. So this is a local policy that we have to ensure that properties don't sit vacant and that land is used for its best intended use and hopefully stays occupied as long as possible. So now the city is considering amending its local policy to allow for addressing unintended consequences with vacant properties that are not being demolished, and they may need to be demolished ahead of concurrent processing of permits and ahead of obtaining other discretionary permits. So I'm not going to read everything on the screen here, but essentially we are amending various sections of the code to include this new process that would essentially give the authority to the Director of Community Safety in collaboration with the Director of Community Development to authorize the demolition of vacant properties that are posing public safety risks. We do have a number of criteria that would have to be in place that a property would have to meet in order for the Director of Community Safety and Director of Community Development to make the determination and authorize that demolition. Good. And we do have a number of compliance tools, tools that the city already utilizes when managing vacant properties to ensure that regulations are followed and anything that needs to be addressed at that time. So there are a number of tools that would still be at the city's discretion. And then just to point out that we are still going to be in compliance with state law, so if any housing units are going to be demoed as part of this process, they would be required to be replaced, so there would be a deed restriction placed on the property to ensure that that happens. Additionally, if there are any historic resources, we would still have to adhere to laws related to historic resources. And just to point out that this new process is really something that is meant to be used on rare occasions when all other methods have failed or have not produced the results necessary to take care of these properties. So the consideration is, again, for these properties that really rise to that level of an imminent threat to public safety, that's really a direct result of individuals trespassing onto the property and doing things that may create hazards such as fires that pose a threat to neighboring properties. So with that, the staff's recommendation is to adopt the amendment to Title 19, Zoning Ordinance of the West Hollywood Municipal Code, to authorize the issuance of demolition permits for vacant properties that pose public safety risks. And that's the end of the presentation. Staff is here for questions.
Thank you so much. There are no public speakers on this item, so I think we can go right to questions or comments. Councilmember Heilman?
Well, this has been before us on several occasions, and I know there's some disagreement, but I'm prepared to move the recommendation, and I've done so.
And I have seconded it. Do you, I'll go down to this end, questions or comments at this point, sorry.
Yep, my only concern is if we have 42 stable, 5 at risk, 9 problematic, are the at risk the ones that are going to be, go into this, go into this category, or is it problematic, or is it failed? And what happens if the stable ones start to move? I mean, is there a way that we can say, as of today, if you're listed on the stable category, that you don't qualify for this because, you've let the property go rather than something happening that created the situation where they were already problematic.
Yeah, so there are a number of criteria that staff would use to determine, I don't know if that's me, to determine if the property does rise to the level that would necessitate authorizing the demolition. So in theory, a property could be in any one of those categories, but probably the likelihood that it's in the failed category or problematic is probably more likely, because we also have to determine that the property owner has not made any effort to secure the property or take care of the property or address concerns by the city. So the city would still utilize its existing mechanisms to reach out to property owners and try to get compliance. If compliance is not being obtained, if the property owner is unresponsive, then they would then that's a potential to utilize this.
I'm just going to add that we are joined by our colleagues from the Community Safety Department, who would obviously play a critical role in implementing this. So Danny Rivas, Community Safety Director, and Vito Adamaitis are both with us if there's any questions that they would like to speak to as well.
Yeah, and I guess I want to know if there's anything in this that would act as a disincentive for a property owner to let their property go. You know, is there anything that will, you know, prevent this from becoming the norm rather than the rare occasion? So we would see this as a disincentive for a property owner to just sit and do nothing, because there are fines that can be imposed on the property. The demolition would be at the expense of the property owner. So it would be in their best interest to be in compliance with city regulations rather than have the city take action.
Okay.
Great. Yes.
Thank you. I'm in support of this, but I do have a question. There was on page 7 of the staff report, when speaking of under new subsection A2 of section 19.50.020, it starts with the determination will be based on some or all of the following characteristics. That's a strange usage of words. Why not just the determination will be based on any of the following characteristics? So why is it on some or all?
So this language was reviewed by city attorney, so it was developed in collaboration with city attorney, and that was where we ended.
Yes, Lauren Langer, city attorney, if you can let me know.
I think the factors that lead to these situations are variable, and it's hard to capture one scenario that covers it all. So it's meant to provide flexibility and show that there are factors and different things. It could be one that is so severe it's enough, or it might be 3 or 4 things that lead to a determination that it's risen to this level. So it's
okay.
I think it's intentionally giving flexibility because we don't know all the factors that are going to play out.
Okay, so could it be based on one factor? I just don't want this challenged if it's based on one and then they say, well, it says some or all.
Right. I mean, the way I read it is probably 2.
Okay.
Some.
Okay.
We could say more. I mean, there's different ways to word it. I think the point was that it's a combination of these things that lead to the public safety problem. And I think the code was too specific in the past, and it let the city not be able to utilize this when the situations really came up. So it's trying to be flexible.
Thank you. Okay.
Great. Seeing no more questions or comments, we have a motion by Councilmember Heilman and a second by myself, and we will go to a vote.
Mayor, I also wanted to note that Kathy Blavis provided a citizen position slip in support of this item.
Wow, okay, great. 5-0. I'm sorry, I'll interrupt me next time so we can make sure we get those ahead of the vote, just so we can do that. Thanks. All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you so much, city staff, for all your hard work and quick turnaround on that. We're going to move right along to unfinished business, our WeHo 40 strategic plan. Do my colleagues want a full staff report on this? No. No? Okay, great. So Paulo and Chris, whoever it is, because I took my glasses off, I know you've been prepping for months for the full staff report, but we'll take an abbreviated one if possible. And then we have 3 public commenters signed up for that. Are there any citizen position slips? Nope, okay. And if you were on the WeHo 40 plan team from a community member, will you raise your hand in the audience so we can just congratulate you up here from behalf of all us? Thank you so much. As they get set up with all their technology. Richard, you are always there. So there you go, Richard.
Okay, we're going to load our slides, and I'll
Great.
get started. Welcome, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. My name is Christine Seyfried, and I'm the assistant to the City Manager in the City Manager's office. With me tonight at the staff table are Paulo Kesperdet, Management Analyst and Project Manager for the WeHo 40 Strategic Plan, as well as Kevin Rosenstein and Eric Wong from Gensler. We also have with us tonight Christopher Locke and Anna Shayla Victorino from Designing in Color, and Richard Bernard from FM3. We also have David Wilson, of course, on the dais with you, our city manager.
He doesn't want to come down there and be with you?
He does not. The plan we are presenting tonight builds off of the success of the city's prior strategic plan that was adopted in the early 2000s and bridges our existing plans and initiatives into a comprehensive strategy. We are not going to give you this whole presentation this evening, but I will hit a few highlights for you. The WeHo 40 strategic plan provides a cohesive organizing framework for the city's highest priorities over the next 15 years. The basic purpose of a strategic plan, and particularly this plan, is to build upon the strong foundation of the city's existing work plans, council directives, special plans, and ongoing projects and programs. The WeHo 40 strategic plan helps to establish a common understanding of the city's existing conditions, its opportunities, and its challenges. It synthesizes broadly representative priorities that we heard through an expansive outreach process between the city and our project team, residents, and stakeholders. It defines measurable objectives organized within a realistic roadmap for implementation. And finally, it describes an inclusive vision of what West Hollywood aspires to be in 2040 and beyond. The WeHo 40 strategic plan was developed through close collaboration with our consulting team and with community members. The Office of the City Manager led the project. City participants were involved at numerous stages and included staff, elected officials, appointed officials, and numerous other community members of all stripes. The prime consultant on the project was Gensler, a global architecture design and planning firm who led the overall project management, including plan development. Gensler's strategy group has existed for more than 30 years and completed numerous strategic plans. Designing in Color led the community organizing and outreach efforts for this project with a focus on social justice, equity, and intense engagement with residents and community members. Gensler, DECO, and the city worked in close collaboration throughout the project to ensure that many historically and frequently underrepresented groups in our community were invited and welcomed into the planning process. FM3 is a frequent city partner and provided public opinion research for the project via focus groups and 2 statistically validated resident surveys that bookended the project to identify issues and validate the final direction of the strategic plan. And thank you for that suggestion, Council. We really thought that that was a wonderful addition to our outreach and validation work. In terms of community engagement, we had 4 phases in the project and 3 streams of community engagement. Those are on the slide here, and they're also shown in our strategic planning document. They included community engagement with residents, business owners, workforce and visitors, community organizing with our action team and core coalition. We actually have some members of the action team in the audience tonight. Would you guys like to raise your hand? Thank you very much. And then we also invited city leadership and staff to participate. And there were multiple participation options throughout the strategic plan in all of the phases for community, staff, and city participation. This is just a brief summary of the engagement methods that we went through in the process through the various phases. I'm not going to go into these in the interest of time. We held multiple community events. There were 3 in-person community events at all 3 of the city's major parks. There was 1 virtual community meeting via Zoom and also live streamed. These various events provided strategic plan information and feedback. There were griot conversation circles focused on specific topics, and there was also food and music to make these entertaining and inviting. Our team also presented at community pop-ups. 3 strategic planning pop-up events were held at the Aquatic Spring Fest, at Mishka Festival, and at the WeHo Pride Street Fair. Each one of these engaged between 1,000 and 2,000 community members. It was a way to both publicize the plan, invite deeper participation at some of our events, point people towards the website, as well as get input and take feedback on various elements of the plan, depending on what stage we were at. So the strategy itself is divided into 6 focus areas and goals with 24 underlying objectives in those focus areas and more than 150 distinct actions that are specific steps that the city will take to advance the objectives and the goals. Each one of the following slides talks briefly about what those are. Our focus areas include community safety and well-being, where we focus on public safety, the city's human services initiatives, and developing neighborhood-specific approaches. The second focus area is attainable housing, with a focus on creating housing opportunities for people of wide-ranging income levels, and specifically looking at or emphasizing affordable housing and challenges that our residents are facing, as well as future residents to the area. Economic development is the third focus area, with a goal of advancing just and inclusive economic opportunities, and really looking at ways to build and help the city maintain and develop economic prosperity over the long term. The fourth focus area is transparency and engagement. This was really responding to the feedback from constituents to help them feel welcome and empowered to participate in local governance and civic life. Community connection was looking at supporting and developing strong social bonds and connections within the community. And then our final focus area was the climate action and sustainability focus area to adapt to the impacts of climate change while improving equity and quality of life. The next steps, sorry, one second. In terms of next steps and implementation, through the community engagement process, we heard the community's desire to follow and see the progress of the plan. Upon approval, the city will begin implementation by incorporating the strategy into our work plans and developing an online dashboard so that community members and elected and appointed officials can track our progress in real time over time. The city will also create a regular community forum tentatively called the Community Coalition, to review and discuss the plan, goals, and objectives. Please note, WeHo 40 strategic plan is intended to be reviewed and updated regularly, and that includes considering the addition of new objectives and new goals that are responsive to community need and to the council's direction. This is intended to be a living document and one that gets updated regularly and reported out on regularly. So to recap, we are asking that you, the City Council, to receive this overview of the strategic planning process as described in the WeHo 40 report, which is attachment A to the staff report, and to consider approval of the goals and objectives in WeHo 40. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that great report. Do we have questions for staff, Councilmember Heilman?
I do, but let's hear from the public.
Are we okay with hearing from the public first? Great. We'll go to our first public commenter, Kevin Burton, to be followed by Caitlin McCafferty.
Good evening, council members. Kevin Burton, resident of West Hollywood. I just want to thank staff and the consultants for all their effort in putting together this impressive document. There was an amazing amount of public outreach. I went to a couple of the open houses and have recently looked at the strategic plan. I just wanted to highlight a few of the statements that I think are of great importance. One is that when talking about the future of the city and what's coming up, two of the prominent aspirations are: one, that the city become a haven for pedestrians and cyclists, including installation of bike lanes; two, that it become a magnet for future talent, and that it's important to include micromobility and transit options, as younger people are frequently and increasingly wanting to be able to get around without depending on cars. Secondly, in terms of focus areas, community safety, a couple of them. One is that a citywide resident survey that I think Christine mentioned found that 58% ranked increasing mobility options, such as increasing bike lanes, are extremely or very important. And this is significant public outreach. It's not some sort of biased survey. Two, that the city should improve the experience and safety of streets and sidewalks for users. Micromobility is becoming an increasingly important transportation option for residents, visitors, but existing infrastructure must be improved to make these options safer. This will require reimagining the city street network so that those who travel car-free can benefit from high-quality infrastructure that is safe, convenient, and accessible. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Caitlin McCafferty, to be followed by our last speaker, Stephen Post.
Hello, I'm Caitlin McCafferty. I'm a member of the Action Team. I'm also on the Rent Stabilization Commission. I just wanted to highlight for y'all the...
Caitlin, can you talk into the mic?
Maybe. I just wanted to highlight the community engagement aspect of this. I'm a city planner by trade, separately from West Hollywood. And I've worked on a lot of plans like this, and the city really did go above and beyond in community engagement through their work with Designing in Color, thanks to their work with Designing in Color. The frequency, the strategy, everything really did go above and beyond, and it really went a step further than just checking a box off of a government requirement for a plan. So I hope you guys all kind of feel that when you read the plan, and yeah, I just want to express my support, and thank you for the opportunity to be so involved. That's it. Thank you.
And Stephen Post.
Hi, council members. Mainly just wanted to come up tonight and thank you all, thank the community for really engaging in this strategic planning process. I'm a 3-year resident now of West Hollywood, and really doing this over the past year has really helped me engage and get to know you all, help me get to know my community members, get to know these businesses, get to know what West Hollywood wants to look like over the next 15 years. And I just really think it's important to thank our community members for coming out and giving their input. As Caitlin talked about, I think there's a lot of issues that we've heard about that folks are concerned about in the community, whether it be from Fountain, whether it be public safety, different things, different initiatives that we've passed. And I know folks don't always feel that they're heard by the community and by the council. And I think it's really great to see how comprehensive our community engagement process was for this. And I think it would be great for the city to continue to look at standardizing this type of process and making sure that community input is inputted before we make a decision on a lot of these things. So just want to thank a few other folks like Design in Color, Anna, Shayla, and Chris specifically. Thank you so much for leading us and having a great group. The folks at Gensler, the city. I just think it's really important to continue having some of these dialogues around public safety, affordable housing, what businesses want and what citizens want from those businesses, so that we can really tailor over the next 15 years what folks we can bring into the city and continue to diversify. And I think we have an opportunity to continue to be that really progressive city, but find solutions to those problems that may arise from that progressivism. And so just really looking forward to continuing to engage with the community and all the citizens, and I hope they continue to read this report and make sure to engage as we continue over the next 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment. Wonderful. We'll go over to questions, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Hammond, or comments at this point.
Well, I do have some comments, but first I'd like to thank everyone involved, all of our staff, all of our consultants, and all of the members of the community who participated not only on the steering committee, but also the people who shared their input and their ideas and suggestions. It's always, I think, very challenging to do this kind of outreach and try to make sure that we're getting the voices and the input unfiltered, but also having it organized in a way that makes sense. There are obviously a lot of very important focus areas and goals here, and I appreciate all the work. Having said, I really appreciate all the outreach. I always am worried that we sometimes are not always getting the full input, and that there are some areas in here where there are still disagreements within the community. There was a comment here, a very positive comment about block by block, but I've also heard very negative comments from some of my neighbors about block by block. Kevin mentioned the bike lanes, which of course is a current source of controversy in the community. So sometimes I worry that we're not always getting accurate reflection of that disagreement within the community. I really appreciate the use of the nonprofits, but again, the nonprofits, some of them are, I presume, city-funded agencies who have a particular focus, and sort of they're asking questions that are really related to their particular clientele and who they're served. But having said that, I think overall the document does provide us with a great deal of information, a great deal of goals and big, broad pictures. I think we need to have a conversation about how this ongoing advisory board is going to work. And this is an advisory board that wasn't chosen by the council, as I recall. So how do we make sure that it remains representative? Something Christine said about this being a living, breathing document with new goals being added gave me a bit of pause, because we went through a very extensive public outreach campaign to get the current priorities. How are those new priorities going to be added without that kind of process? Or is it going to be really the voices of the people on the advisory board saying these are now new priorities? So I have a little bit of concern about that. I did have a couple of questions on page 81. And some of the pages are hard to see in this because if we use black at the bottom, they get blacked out. There's this case study of San Francisco, and then there's a small note at the end that San Francisco is a charter city, so we can't do that here. So why are we including that? So that might be something that we might want to think about eliminating from this. I did have a question on page 98. I think that's one of those pages that's hard to see. There was a reference to disappearance of free or low-cost community activities and gatherings. I have no idea what that's referring to. I mean, we have a lot of free or low-cost activities here in the park and at council chambers. So do we know specifically what was being referred to there?
There we go. Eric from Gensler can take that question.
Sure. That was referring more generally to something we've observed throughout the country, where
these social institutions and organizations that used to be a source of community for people have generally been dissipating, and not specifically referencing the city of West Hollywood and the programs here. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it just struck me as odd because I can't think of, you know, low-cost or free community activities that have suddenly disappeared in West Hollywood. It seems to the contrary that we have more activities in West Hollywood. So that was something that struck me odd. On page 110, the reference to shade equity, I understand what that meant, but I know that Helen is in the back, and I know we've planted trees on every residential street in the city of West Hollywood. So are we talking about something other than that, or trying to find other places where trees can be planted that aren't on our street trees, or on our streets rather?
Yeah, so it's more in line of making sure that we're continuing with shade equity for other individuals finding spaces where we can plant additional trees and additional greenery throughout the city.
Okay. This is one of those things where I felt like, you know, that's a great aspiration, but it seems disconnected to what we've actually done in the city in terms of every city street has been planted with street trees since we became a city. So putting that in the context of that would have been helpful to me. You know, there's something else talking about solar power on 112, which of course I support, but it seems like we have a lot of these aspirational things that we have talked about before, that we've actually given direction on before, and they haven't been implemented. So that's one of the concerns I have here of how do we make sure that previous directions actually get implemented? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I can respond to that very quickly. So with the online implementation tool, a lot of these, all of these goals and objectives will be tracked into that system, so you'll be able to see the progress over time. And the prior council initiatives or directives will also be incorporated into this as well too.
Okay, I have like maybe 3 more comments, and I apologize to my colleagues because I know we don't want to stay late tonight. There's a reference to supporting BIPOC and LGBT businesses, which of course is fine. I think what I'm hearing is a concern about supporting all businesses in the city, and that being a primary area, with, you know, supporting particular categories of business being a subcategory of a much broader initiative. So I don't know if that's fully captured here. Some of the references to our current homeless policies, it's a big concern, as Richard's survey has indicated. It's a concern of the public. And what I'm seeing here is, let's just tell the public what we're doing. And I'm going to bring an item, but what we're doing isn't working. It's working in some respects, but it is certainly not working when you see the same individuals on the street repeatedly, day after day. You call repeatedly, and they're still there, and they're not receiving services. They're not accepting services, and there doesn't seem to be a strategy to deal with that. So that, I think, is an area that, as I read this, it felt fairly weak in terms of what the next steps are. My final point is that this is a great document, and thank you again to everyone, even though I'm, you know, raising some concerns about it. It isn't really what I expected in terms of a strategic plan. I think the next steps for us are to have some conversations amongst ourselves about things that we as a council and internally as a staff need to be addressing just to make some of these things happen. So I was talking to Helen and Steve the other day about a long-range plan for our infrastructure and making sure that we have a 5-year plan for streets and paving, but we need to have a 20 to 30-year plan for all of our infrastructure and thinking about when our replacement's going to be needed and things like that. So I'm hoping that this will be a springboard for that kind of conversation as part of WeHo 40 strategic plan. But again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Councilmember Meister. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. So can you please explain to me again the advisory board, how that's supposed to work?
Hi, Councilmember Meister. I'll take that question. So the WeHo 40 Community Coalition, which is the implementation phase, I think that's what you're referring to. So that basically continues from the work that we did through the Action Team and Core Coalition. It's an open community forum, which means it isn't necessarily a Brown Act body to provide flexibility for people to attend or not attend, depending on areas they want to focus on and talk to staff or experts about in the community. And so how this would work, it would be how we kind of outlined it in the staff report is it would be held twice a year, and each of those meetings would focus on 3 focus areas outlined in the strategic plan. And then we would provide a report to community members that attend. And then we would have a small group conversation on areas of interest or potential solution ideas that would happen. And then through that, we would report back.
So would they be open to the public then or not?
Yeah, it's 100% open to the public.
Okay, great. Super. So a lot of Councilmember Heilman's comments I agree with. It's interesting because the protecting longstanding neighborhood businesses that you have, we actually had a legacy business initiative that wasn't really implemented. So it would be nice to revisit that to see what parts of that we are able to do versus what we're not allowed to do because we're not that type of city. We also had an initiative several years ago that then Councilmember Horvath and I put forward about solar-powered, to have solar power on roofs and or green roofs. Rather than, and we've actually kind of gone in the opposite direction. We keep looking for rooftop uses. So I guess we need to really, again, talk about that because if we are serious about some of these climate action plan goals, then maybe we need to look back and see what initiatives had been put forward that just weren't implemented. So that would be one of the ones that I would be interested in. And then, with trees, we can always use another tree. And we do have the tree replacement policy where we are looking at canopy trees as a way of addressing extreme heat and other climate issues and just clean air and all of that. So we all, I think, know the benefits of that. And as Councilmember Heilman said, we need to talk to discuss what is the strategy to actually, make sure that all happens. I was really glad that we did the quantitative survey with FM3. I think it's really important that we do that, often, not just once every 40 years or once every 5 years. I think it's important for us to all see that the top 3 items, the highest ranked future priority by residents, at least from this group that was talked to for this project, supporting community safety and well-being, maintaining the city's unique urban balance with emphasis on residential neighborhoods, maintaining fiscal sustainability. So these are all important for us to know what the priorities are, especially as we come back and to strategize what are our next steps and what should we be focusing on. So I would say that we need to do the community surveys of this type a little more often and make sure that we're constantly checking in with residents because We have residents come for our council meetings and our commission and board meetings, but we maybe have 50 people show up and maybe 10 people speak, and it's important for us to have that perspective from a quantitative study that's done properly. With that, I'm supportive of passing this, but I agree that we have to be practical. This is all, it's beautiful, but we have to be practical and see how do we practically implement the priorities. So, thank you.
Councilmember Shine, do you have any comments?
Yes, I want to thank all of the community that was involved and staff and constituents and public commenters. I was also very happy about the survey that was conducted, which gives informative information. I'm very supportive of this strategic plan, and so I don't really have a ton to say. I think my colleagues addressed some things that I was going to also address, but thank you, everyone, for the good work.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Byers.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to everyone who contributed to this. I do feel the level of engagement reflected through the pages, not just in the amazing photos of our community so beautifully reflected here, but in the language, in the values expressed, and it just feels like an amazing moment to sort of look forward into the city. I really appreciate this document as a guide, as somebody very new to council still, although I won't be the newest soon, so that's interesting in the coming weeks, months. But I think as people are, sort of shaking off the pandemic, still reacclimating to public life, getting back engaged in things that matter deeply to them, the way this tool and this plan weaves together all existing tools and plans is extremely valuable. And seeing all these different goals and priorities laid out as they are with these action steps, this sort of list of ideas, things that are, things that have already been put into sort of motion and maybe need reflection and some further work now, things that are new ideas, and things that are rooted back into existing work that has a deeper history to it as well. So that's really meaningful. And in that, I feel, as was said by a public commenter, the level of engagement here is really it feels really meaningful. And I know we have community members who are feeling unheard and unseen. And I think in this guide, we find our place. So just thank you to everyone who worked so deeply on this. I don't have any specific comments. I just have a lot of eagerness and excitement to get to work. This feels like a really strong declaration from our community about the future they want to see. And we have 15 years to get moving on it. So really excited for that.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone who was involved in this, from our city staff to the consultant teams to all of the members of the community who put in a lot of hard work and Saturdays. I know the first one was during a rainstorm, if I'm not mistaken, so that was fun. But people still came out, and I think that's really admirable. So I want to thank, when it rains, it shines, right? So wonderful time, and it was great to see different groups there. A lot of what's been said, I concur with. I'm fine with however we want to call it. I think we like to call things advisory boards when they're not advisory boards. I think we have like 57 advisory boards in the city of West Hollywood at this point, so maybe we don't need another one. However, I think it is important to keep this space twice a year for people to be engaged. They'll bring a friend, like as Steven said, he's been here for 3 years and he brings a friend. It's all the ways in which you can get more engaged, right? And that's really important. I also agree with how we can continue to promote the good work of the city. When I looked at the survey, some people like to say that the sky is falling, but 2/3 rate the quality of life in West Hollywood favorably. I mean, was talking to a number of my city colleagues, and other cities, and I said, how do you rate or survey your residents? And they said, well, I think the last time we surveyed our residents was 10 years ago. So, you know, some of them don't do this or don't engage in this level of survey. So I think what Councilmember Meister said was really important for how we can continue to gauge these aspects, right? Because 13% said excellent, and then 25% said fair, and there are cities that would kill to have a fair rating. I'm looking at our city that borders three sides of us called the city of LA, our ugly stepsister to the north, east, and south sometimes, because we oftentimes see the issues that Los Angeles has impact West Hollywood, and that's an issue we're trying to do. Additionally, some of the top issues here are something that we can help continue to set our priorities around. And while things like to be, you know, politicized in whatever way, the way that we can have these top 5 always as staple points for our core values, how we implement them into our staff reports, what are they meeting at the mood and the time that we're looking at. Homelessness shouldn't shock anyone. That should be the #1 issue everyone is talking about. But the city of West Hollywood does, as we know, more than many other cities for homelessness, bar none, and we can set our watches to that. The cost of housing is high everywhere, but we're continuing to build affordable housing. So how do we promote successes to the community in these biannual meetings versus a place for them to come, not complain, but to really air grievances? Because we want to also share the good work, right? And what do we look at in terms of what do those next steps look like and how do we do it? So I just want to again thank you all for everything that you're doing. I believe this is in more ways than one a receive and file and continue next steps if I'm getting the mood of my colleagues, and you'll come back with next steps moving forward in whatever way you will. Yes, David?
So I don't think there's a plan to come back to actually adopt anything. I think we'll take all the input. We'll make adjustments to what this final document looks like, because you're not adopting this document tonight, but there are certainly comments that will make some minor adjustments within the document for a printed document. But ultimately, what you're overall adopting is the focus areas and the goals, which there seems to be agreement on, and then we'll develop an implementation plan which will be available to the public in the dashboard that Paula was talking about. And I think that's what will come back in future discussions with the council, is the ongoing implementation to achieve these goals.
Wonderful. Councilmember Heilman?
Yes, and just, you know, noting that there is still some disagreement in the community on some of the implementation measures, but the big goals, I don't think there's any disagreement on. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. All right, we're going to vote. And 5-0. Thank you very much, everyone. All right.
Mayor.
What? Nope. All right. We're going to move right along. F1 was moved to consent. F2 was moved to consent, the grants in schools. We're going to move right along to F3. I don't believe we need a staff report on this. I'll just go right to Councilmember Heilman.
I want to thank my colleagues for bringing this, and this is an item that increased the visibility of the city's Human Services Commission and the Social Services Program. I know that this really focuses on broadcasting the commission meetings. I'm okay with broadcasting one a year, but I don't think broadcasting commission meetings is the way that we really inform the public about the programs that are available for and are funded through our Human Services Commission. I think there are much more effective ways of communicating. I feel bad when Sam comes here or when Jimmy comes here and they try to comment at the 2 minutes. It really rarely captures anything, and having a commission meeting where there are votes back and forth, I don't think that necessarily highlights the programs. I think we should be looking at doing interviews with the actual service providers and programs that talk about the actual programs and what are the resources available, rather than having people sit through a commission meeting to try to glean that information from random comments that are made. I think there's better ways to publicize our programs. I don't have a problem with having the commission, maybe the funding meeting telecast, but I think if the goal is transparency, why this commission and why not all the other commissions and boards, and then we don't have the resources and staffing to do it. So I support aspects of this, but not the entirety of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Meister?
Thank you, Mayor. So back in 2015, 2016, we actually voted to have more visibility of all of our commissions and boards by either showing them on cable or podcasting, because we felt that that would be a modern way of letting people listen to whatever commission or board they're interested in. So I'm hoping that we didn't give up on that, and I probably should have looked for that in that strategic plan. But I would say that we need to relook at that and make sure that that gets implemented. And I think the idea of maybe having on cable what Councilmember Heilman suggested about having service providers go on our cable TV to talk about what they're doing and how people can get services in whichever area they're looking to get services, and marketing materials as well, which I know we have some of. But I'm all for podcasting or somehow making it easier for people to access our commission and board meetings. We have a situation now where we have Public Safety Commission on the same night as Historic Preservation Commission, which I think we shouldn't have. We should figure out there's another day so that people don't have to make that choice. But until we do, it would be great for someone to be able to go and listen to whatever meeting they missed because they were at the other meeting. And as we've talked about in the past, we have so many events going on, and sometimes 2 or 3 happening in one evening. It would be nice to have, at least for the commission and board meetings, to have that ability to go back and listen to it without having to do a public records request for an audio tape. So, I'm supportive of this. I think we just need to look at expanding, how we do it, and also going back to 2015, 2016, to the ideas that were already passed, and make sure that they happen.
Thank you, Councilmember. So Vice Mayor Byers, do you have any questions?
I do. Well, I'm also a little bit concerned about the equity piece of this. I served on the Human Services Commission. I understand the importance of the work, but have been struggling to figure out how to navigate the challenge of having that very important information not shared in a bigger way. So I'm really appreciative of many aspects of this. And I appreciated staff's recommendation of a video recording alternative in the interim of a live broadcast. I do think the live broadcast piece is where the staff capacity has the biggest challenge, and it seems like even in this report they're asking for time to figure out what that could look like. So in hearing what Councilmember Meister's suggesting, that there's a bigger question about how we give more airtime to all of our advisory boards and commissions, the piece of asking staff to really look at capacity around broadcasting is a piece I'm interested in. I'm interested in the video recording alternative to get started with the Human Services Commission now, because it sounds like it's a low barrier way to make sure each meeting is recorded and then posted at a later date. And I think that is an appropriate way to share information that isn't totally pressing and has been waiting for the community for some time while staff figures out the larger equity piece that is a real concern. Because once we allow this to happen, then other boards and commissions, rightfully so, we're going to be asking for the same sort of thing, because all of that information is very important. The other aspect of this that I think is sort of pressing and now is the creativity that we can invest our comms team in thinking through ways that can uplift the many different service providers and the work that they do. And I appreciate Councilmember Heilman's suggestions on what that could look like, the interviews, and I know our comms team will come up with a lot of other things, but it's the live broadcast now that I'm sort of tangled up with because I don't want to fold staff's capacity around that specific need. So if there's some room to wiggle with this, and I'm open to figuring out how we move forward.
Councilmember Shai.
Thank you. Are there any public comments anymore? Okay. Well, I want to thank my colleagues for your comments. I will say that as part of the marketing campaign component, this is where the mayor and I are hoping that our communications department would go out to social service providers and interview them, and a whole slew of other creative ideas dedicated to getting the word out about our Human Services Commission's good work and the social services, because over the years, the folks that are using the social services that we offer are the same folks over and over and over again, which means we have a communication issue. We have, in our strategic plan, 35,000 residents, and a small number that are using the amount of services that we're putting a lot of funding towards. So we want to get the word out, and that's the second part of this. The reason Human Services does, by the way, have a lot of these social service providers that come and do reports at the meetings is not just comments here and there. They actually focus on each different meeting has a service provider come. So that would actually help the communications department too by having it broadcast. And I hear my colleagues, Councilmember Meister and Vice Mayor Byers, you made a really good point. And what I've been told is that we actually have the capability to videotape all of our commissions at this point. Videotape them. Videotape. So what we would like to propose to get support for this item is to go ahead and not just do the alternative for Human Services Commission, but go ahead and address the equity issue and have every single commission, and if I don't know if the boards are available too, but to have those be videotaped, and then we don't have an equity issue anymore, and they will go online. And as Commissioner Jimmy Palmieri stated, that could be shared with the public. And this is the 2015. The podcast is not going to happen. The podcast is somewhere, and we don't know. So we need the videotapes. I believe. Am I city manager? We have the ability to videotape, right?
We do.
Okay.
It's still going to take some time and training to video them and have them available, but because of COVID and the pandemic, all of our rooms have the capability of videoing. So it'd be similar to like a Zoom meeting that would be posted. I did want to clarify that the audio recordings are happening with all the boards and commissions, the podcasts that you all talked about. They are available on the city's website. We're working on making them easier to find because they're not easy to find. But they're also, they're audio recordings. I don't think people are as interested nowadays in going back and listening to audio recordings as they may be with the video recordings. So I think we can certainly do that. We'll continue to look at other ways for public awareness of not only our social services programs and the Human Services Commission, but all the boards and commissions, is what I'm hearing from you all. And so we can look at longer term strategies for all of them, but starting with the Human Services Commission, and then work on having video available of all the boards and commissions.
Yeah, I think what actually I'm suggesting is we do to the taping of all the other commissions, because apparently there's other commissions that have been wanting to be videotaped. So then that takes care of the equity issue. With regard to the second part of this, which is the marketing, is focused on the Human Services Commission, because that really is what we need to get out to the public, all of the services that we offer. So keep that limited to Human Services Commission. And what the mayor and I are offering is to expand this. Instead of alternative one, our alternative is to have you all do whatever needs to be done to have the Human Services Commission and the other commissions be videotaped, not live, so we're not straining resources. But if there's agreement from Councilmember Meister and Byers and hopefully Councilmember Heilman, then we could, that's the motion I'm putting forward.
And just
Is that clear? Yes.
Yeah, it looked also that in the staff analysis that the video recording alternative could begin as soon as Q1 of 2025.
Yeah.
So that was in progress, which is great. And February, my understanding is that there's the new sort of appointment period for our boards and commissions. So, you know, at least that new realm will be starting with that. And then, okay, that's all I had to say.
Yes, I'd like to make this motion if the mayor wants a second. Was the motion clear?
Why don't we clarify it just for...
Sure. The motion is that we are going to, by quarter one, have our commissions and boards video recorded and do the training, whatever needs to be done, or is it a budget that needs to happen?
It's more training than anything.
Okay.
If by quarter one, you're saying by January?
No, after, it would be after the appointments. I think they happen in February, right? After the new appointments are made.
Okay.
So maybe March?
Yeah,
That's
reasonable.
that gives enough time.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then the marketing plan is for the Human Services Commission.
Yes. Good.
That's in my motion.
Okay, and just to clarify, because I did get information on how to find the audio recording, so the public knows. If you go to go.weho/meeting recordings, the recordings of the boards and commissions, the audio recordings are there and available currently.
Okay.
Councilmember Heilman, hold on one second. Councilmember Heilman.
David, do we have any indication or any knowledge of how many people actually access the current audio recordings? I mean, part of it is that they're difficult to find, but...
We don't have any actual numbers, but it's not a lot. We do know that.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of my concern about now elevating to video recordings when people aren't really going to access them. I don't know what the cost is. It sounds like there's not much of a cost, but there's time and training involved. I'd like to have you provide us with more information on that before we definitely commit to it. At least that's how I'm thinking. I'm definitely, obviously, in support of marketing our social service programs and the work that the Human Services Commission is doing, but I'm not sure that we necessarily need video recordings in lieu of the current audio recordings of all of our meetings.
Yeah, and maybe we start with a pilot program of the Human Services Commission, because it'll be easier to train for one commission, make those available. We'll be able to track how many people are actually reviewing the recordings and then make a decision from there in 3 to 6 months or however long we think. And because the meetings don't happen that frequently, I would say 6 months, we'd need that to at least
I have a
get data.
question then. I'm not prepared to change my motion yet for that. When we had the pandemic, all of our boards and commissions the recordings were offered, correct?
Yes.
That's why we have the capability?
Yes, but those were fully Zoom meetings, and so
Right.
as we've seen here, having a meeting that's not fully Zoom is a little harder to record than a fully Zoom meeting. So I think that's the difference. And I think we've seen those challenges with our council meetings.
Well,
I don't.
So
I just want to add on, I think the reason why I do support this and I agreed to co-author this with Councilmember Shine is, we get, we discuss up here with members of the public how things are done maybe like in, allegedly in darkness, right? And there's public meetings, there's outreach, there's all of these availabilities, and I support this item because I can easily say to a resident, which I do, well, this was actually discussed at this meeting. This is how government works, and therefore go watch this meeting and get involved, right? If you weren't able to attend, it's okay, but people need to know that we've done every tool, and this is every tool doing it. I'm growing more concerned over I don't know if it's disinformation, but the idea that the city operates in darkness in some ways. And this is the opposite of that. And so that's why I support this motion and moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah, same. And also, the reason the podcast doesn't have a lot of people listening to it is because we don't even know where it is. And now we have our city manager telling us this is the website to go to. So we can't really use that as a way to say, well, there aren't enough people. But during the pandemic, the reason I brought that up is people were watching, and people watch. There might not be a ton of people live watching us tonight, but as the weeks go on, we can see the numbers increase for city council meetings, so people do go and watch, and transparency is incredibly important. So I would like to keep the motion as is in the interest of transparency. And as far as the budgeting, we're talking about training, we're not talking about, the capability is there. We're the creative city, we have the technology. This has been happening since 2015, 16, and now we're 2024. So.
yeah, I think the bigger budget issue was the live broadcast, not the videoing.
So we're not talking about live broadcasts.
Yeah, so the budget issue was related more to the live broadcast.
Okay.
The videoing still requires training and more money, but it's not as much of a budget issue.
Okay.
And just to clarify on your other question regarding the video, so we were having full Zoom meetings on
Right.
video. We set up the rooms to all have video capability,
Okay.
but we haven't broadcast or recorded the meetings for them to be viewed.
Okay.
So we haven't done that yet.
Okay.
We just went from Zoom meetings to in-person meetings, but set up the rooms with the capability.
We have the capability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Hahn, did you say something?
Yeah, I'm going to make a substitute motion, and my substitute motion would be that we do a full marketing campaign for the human services programming, that we do a pilot project with video recording of the Human Services Commission, and then we evaluate the effectiveness of that after 6 months and look at whether we should implement that for other boards and commissions. So that would be my substitute. But I don't think there's a second.
I just think that whether we do one commission or we do all of our commissions, and maybe we stick to commissions and not do boards and advisory boards until we have this, until we figure out if this is effective or not. And then let's say in 6 months or a year, whatever that timing is, that we make sure that we do have metrics to see what the interest is.
Councilmember Shine, would you be okay with the marketing campaign, the pilot for the HSC and all other commissions, and then the evaluation after 6 to 9 months?
That's fine, as long as we get our commissions in this, and then we can have metrics after 6 months.
Okay, so commissions, sounds good. Okay, so just to reiterate the motion for the public, city attorney, when she wags her finger, I look.
Sure, the full marketing campaign.
Yes.
The video alternative for all commissions, no boards, and then to revisit in about 6 months, look at the metrics and see how it's working to see whether boards would be added or make sure the program is working.
Yes, and currently 35 people are watching us on YouTube, so there you go. Start the metrics now. All right, let's vote. All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you so much, colleagues. We're going to move on to our last item before excluded consent, and that was the resolution in support of the plant-based treaty. I don't think we need a staff report, but I do believe we have some of our friends in the chambers and public commenters. We have 2 people.
And also, the reason I didn't, that I asked that it stay on rather than putting it on consent is we have gotten some comments from people, about this concern that we are telling people how to eat, what to eat. And I know that, I eat meat. I think Vice Mayor Byers eats meat. Some of us eat meat. And I want to make sure that it's clear to the public what the point of this treaty is, and that there is no expectation that you have on changing our habits, but that hopefully it changes because we learn more. Well, that's my question. So that was.
Okay. Why don't we go to the public comment first, because we have a few of them. So why don't we, and then we'll go back. So I'm gonna, Caesar Espedo, to be followed by Cameron Frey.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having us on the agenda. We really appreciate everything that you do here, being such a progressive city. It's amazing to be here, and we appreciate everything. We love the fact that you're addressing the plant-based treaty, because we're in a climate crisis now, and we can really impact with changing food systems and everyday lifestyles with each and every meal. We're so excited to have the LA Climate Week Town Hall. It was great. So we just really want to show the impact of relinquishing factory farms, redirecting, and then restoring ecosystems to the wildlife and indigenous. So we really appreciate you. We appreciate your time. I don't want to take up all the time. I know we have some other speakers, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Cameron Frey, to be followed by Samantha Lau. Are there any on Zoom? Okie dokie.
Okay. Good evening, council members. My name is Cameron Fry. I'm 26, a member of Gen Z. I'm a part of the Plant-Based Treaty, and I have climate anxiety. Among many initiatives, we at the Plant-Based Treaty aim to highlight the immense levels of environmental harm caused and encouraged by factory farming. We also work to promote plant-based alternatives and land reclamation for indigenous peoples, land conservation, and where applicable, rewilding. I volunteered with Plant-Based Treaty because I believe in this message and that we can fight against climate change firsthand through changing our food systems. I'm so glad that the City of West Hollywood has passed policy requiring that all city-sanctioned events serve plant-based food as a default. I think this policy is great for raising awareness about the importance of plant-based food systems and aids in normalizing the presence of plant-based food in our communities as well. I'm grateful that the City of West Hollywood is considering endorsing the Plant-Based Treaty to implement more plant-based initiatives, because we need more sustainable food systems as the climate and environment continues to transform. Cities that endorse the Plant-Based Treaty are not legally bound by the 40 proposals, and it does not mean that they are obliged or able to fulfill the treaty demands. However, cities that endorse the Plant-Based Treaty are encouraged to make meaningful changes and implement good practices in plant-based food policies and rewilding within their own jurisdiction and priorities. I think it would be amazing to have the City of West Hollywood's endorsements of the proposals of the Plant-Based Treaty. Thank you for listening, council members.
Thank you so much. Samantha Lau, to be followed by Paige Parsons-Roche.
Hi, good evening, council members, vice mayor and mayor in the City of West Hollywood. My name is Samantha, and I am an elected member of the LACDP, Los Angeles County Democratic Party for District 49, and I'm also an environmentalist, an animal advocate, and a campaigner at Plant-Based Treaty. Thank you so much for your time today and the opportunity to speak tonight. We really appreciate the council for putting plant-based treaty on the agenda tonight. Thank you, Vice Mayor Byers, for supporting our efforts in fighting climate change. I want to commend the city of West Hollywood for the WeHo 40. It is a very comprehensive roadmap that focuses on improving the quality of life for the community. Furthermore, your climate action and sustainability plan has a very achievable goal.
Hold on. Well, but are we still live? Thank you. You had about 1:19 left, so just hold on for a second. And we're just confirming that our feed is still live. Are we still legally allowed to continue the meeting? Because technically this is the posted site versus the YouTube, or does the YouTube have to work as well? Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break. We're gonna come back. And just a quick comment, plant-based treaty people, you all really turn out. It doesn't matter if it's 12 o'clock at night or 1 in the morning. Congratulations. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Our colleague will be back from the restroom in a second. You have 1:19, and Paige, you'll be followed next.
Okay, can I start over or no?
You know what? Sure, that's
Okay.
fine. Just start where you are, and you only were 30 seconds in, so you're fine.
Okay, great. Should I wait for?
Nope, go ahead.
Go ahead, thank you, okay. Good evening, council members, vice mayor, mayor, and the city of West Hollywood. My name is Samantha, and I'm an elected member of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party for District 49. I'm also an environmentalist, an animal advocate, and a campaigner at Plant-Based Treaty. Thank you so much for your time and opportunity to speak tonight. We really appreciate the council for putting Plant-Based Treaty on the agenda tonight. Thank you, Vice Mayor Byers, for supporting our efforts in fighting climate change. I want to commend the city of West Hollywood for WeHo 40. It is a very comprehensive roadmap that focuses on improving the quality of life for the community. Furthermore, your climate action and sustainability plan has a very achievable goal of reaching city carbon neutrality by 2035. and bolster resilience of city operations by considering climate resilience goals and policy decisions. The carbon neutrality goal is especially attainable if you support the plant-based treaty, which helps reduce dramatically carbon, nitrous oxide, and methane emissions. The plant-based treaty also calls upon local, state, and national governments to restore key ecosystems through rewilding and prioritizing native ecology to create more sustainable communities, which will help to shore up resiliency. To put it simply, plant-based treaty can help WeHo reach your climate goals. Again, I appreciate the City Council and the City of West Hollywood for the bold actions that they have taken and continue to build on and urge the city to adopt this resolution to help meet these goals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Paige Parsons Roche, to be followed by Chris Tucker.
Good evening. Thank you, elected officials, for this opportunity to share about the plant-based treaty. I brought some education up because I am an educator, and I joined this campaign several months ago to bring forth the message of the importance of plant-based foods on our plates for our climate crisis mitigation and solutions. I'm a mom. My daughter came home at 13 years old 9 years ago saying she was vegan. I didn't quite understand what all that meant, but being a climate activist already, I got interested and learned about our climate crisis solutions being add more plants onto our plates. So with the plant-based treaty being here in Hollywood, West Hollywood, a lot happens here, very progressive city, and the ripple effect, the possibility is just immense around the world. So thank you very much for considering this. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Chris Tucker, to be followed by Justine Block.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for putting this on the agenda tonight and hearing some public comments. I'm actually here to say thank you on behalf of myself and my husband, who have lived in the city for a combined 30 years. We appreciate your actions towards a cleaner and healthier community. By endorsing the plant-based treaty, you'll only be furthering the eco-impact. I'm a vegan chef here in the city of West Hollywood that's provided food for events like the Elton John Oscar Party that happens annually in West Hollywood Park. And I look forward to working closely with the city as a liaison to our local restaurants and bars to help implement more plant-forward dishes in their establishments. From delicious plant-based steaks to traditional bar food, the plant-based market has truly transformed in the last several years. Expanding menus and having more inclusive options will only expand businesses' capacity for new guests, all while making healthier, climate-conscious options. The plant-based treaty and being vegan by default doesn't restrict or limit people's options. It actually does the complete opposite. It's not about taking away people's options to have a steak. It's about giving people the choice to enjoy a plant-based option as well. It's my hope that the city of West Hollywood will continue to move the goalposts forward when it comes to sustainability efforts as they relate to food. Being plant-based by default at all city events is a great start, but my hope would be that we can expand the groundwork into all local WeHo businesses and make them as inclusive as the rest of our city is. With 62% of our residents considering environmental sustainability an extreme urgent issue, I hope the city will continue to mitigate its greenhouse gases through the leading climate suffocator, animal agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you. Justine Block, and then we'll go to our two speakers on Zoom.
Good evening. I'm Justine Block, an environmental law attorney and longtime resident of our wonderful city of West Hollywood. I served on the former East Side Working Group as well as the General Plan Update Advisory Committee many years ago. So I'm here to support the city's adoption of a resolution urging the United States to support a plant-based treaty. I am Just adding to some of the information that the plant-based treaty folks already provided, which I hope addressed Councilmember Meister's concerns from the residents. Research shows that plant-based meals have a 63% lower carbon footprint than animal-based meals. Adoption of this resolution would support shifting to a plant-based food system to combat climate change, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and reduce other harms of animal agriculture. I appreciate the Vice Mayor for initiating this resolution and for all of you to be considering it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justine. Lovely to hear from you. We're going to move to our speakers on Zoom.
Our first speaker is Ellen Dent. Ellen, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute.
Thank you very much, and thank you to West Hollywood City Council members, Mayor Erickson, Vice Mayor Byers. I want to express my gratitude to your council for considering adopting the plant-based treaty resolution today that will encourage our national government to endorse and enact plant-based food policies. Special thanks to Vice Mayor Chelsea Byers for her support in introducing this vital measure, along with Jennifer Del Toro and Andy Lovano for helping draft the resolution. Animal agriculture accounts for over a third of global greenhouse gas emissions. The need to transition to plant-based food system has never been more necessary to lessen our contribution to the climate crisis we are facing. By passing the plant-based treaty, West Hollywood will help lead the way for residents to empower and educate themselves about the benefits of plant-based lifestyles, while supporting the city's efforts to reduce emissions and achieve carbon neutrality under the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan by 2035. In addition, this endorsement will pave the way for other municipalities around the world to put truly sustainable food systems at the forefront of solutions to preventing the worsening environmental impacts. I hope that you will choose to pass the resolution, and in doing so, leave a legacy for future generations to follow as we do our best to live in harmony with our ecosystems. I'm so grateful for your time. I want to just address Councilmember Meister's concerns. 30% of the people who have endorsed the plant-based treaty that respond about their diets are actually omnivores. It is not legally binding, like Cameron said. It's just acknowledging that plant-based food systems are a great
Thank
way
you so
to
much,
combat the
Ellen.
climate crisis.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joey Gaber. Joey, go ahead. Press *6 to unmute.
Hello, members of the City Council, the Mayor, the Vice Mayor. Thank you so much for bringing forth this resolution to call on the United States to support the plant-based treaty. First of all, I want to thank the City of West Hollywood for being leaders in both sustainability and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. I also appreciate City staff for putting together their report highlighting how this resolution will support and reinforce City goals to adapt to the current climate crisis. They highlighted that this resolution is consistent with City efforts towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as well as their currently adopted policies. One of the most important parts of the plant-based treaty is how it addresses land use changes, given that the beef industry has accounted for 80% or more of deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. It also calls for the restoration of key ecosystems and generally creating a global food system that is sustainable and equitable to everyone. I also want to specifically address the concerns citizens communicated to Councilmember Meister, which are very valid concerns, that this would mandate anyone to eat plant-based. It's much more about creating a system change to educate people, fight for food justice, and combat climate change. Even in the event of the world adopting a plant-based treaty, absolutely nobody would be compelled to give up meat. Rather, it is demanding both ecological and food justice, as a plant-based food system will give access to whole plant foods for all people while fighting to restore our most important resource in the fight against climate change, our natural ecology. By calling on the U.S. to endorse the plant-based treaty, West Hollywood has the opportunity to once again continue the city's leadership in fighting for a sustainable food system and ultimately fighting to prevent climate change. And again, I just want to thank the entirety of the City Council for the opportunity to speak today and urge you to adopt this resolution.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Vice Mayor Byers?
Thank you. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come out and share. We all know this education and awareness is what leads to the inspiration for people to make these changes in their lives. And so I'm really grateful to you all for paving the way. And Councilmember Meister, just as a direct response, this is, as you've heard, not about forcing anyone, but truly motivating and inspiring that personal level action while we as council members make decisions to scale that impact. And as we did with the plant-based default policy, we're making another decision tonight that's deeply in alignment with our climate action and adaptation plan. What I learned by doing that plant-based default menu work with Mercy for Animals was that we're one of the few cities that has named food systems and agriculture systems as part of the work to undo and eliminate carbon emissions from the planet, so that we are a city that is that forward thinking and understanding the way food systems and agriculture have contributed to the harm and degradation of our planet is incredible. And it's our work as a council to continue finding ways to bring that information to light and ensure that we're advancing ideas around that. So that's why I wanted to bring the plant-based treaty forward. We have incredible community members who have been advocating for this for a very long time. And they mentioned along with it, there are 40 actionable steps, many of which we are already on our way to doing, and others we have work to do. So I'm really grateful to be in partnership with you all and helping us as a city think more deeply about how we can keep on focus when it comes to this. Hearing folks who live with climate anxiety, I share that too. It's what's motivated a lot of my work. And I know future generations are desperate and doing everything we can to get ahead of this race to protect our planet. So I really appreciate you all being here tonight, and I appreciate the council for considering this. Thanks.
Thank you. Would you like to make a motion?
We'll motion to support.
Can I make a comment?
Sure. Yes, of course.
Thank you. So I'm really glad that this didn't go on consent, because I think it's really important for people to understand, why this is being done, rather than going on consent and then, nobody hears about it. They just have concerns and they don't know the answers to the concerns. So for me, hearing all of you actually saying, it's not about taking away options, it's about increasing options, and it's about education. And that's why I support this item. So thank you. Thank you for coming.
All right, we'll vote. All right, 5-0. All right, we're going to move. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to move on to
Mayor. Sorry, before you move on to excluded consent, may I have the floor to read the title of the ordinance?
Of
Thank
course.
you. This is for item C1. The title is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of West Hollywood adopting an amendment to Title 19, the zoning ordinance of the West Hollywood Municipal Code, to authorize the issuance of demolition permits for vacant properties that pose public safety risks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I don't think we need a briefing for this one, but to stay tuned, why don't we go, do we have public commenters on this? No? Great. Why don't we go right to, we have Kevin Burton, where? Oh, I don't see public comments on my thing, so.
I know you had questions, Councilmember Meister.
I know, the thing's not working. Okay, now we see we have a public commenter. Let's go to the comments or questions from Councilmember Meister first. Sorry about that. I was waiting one after the
Okay,
other.
so the reason that I actually asked for this to be pulled from consent is because when I first got elected to City Council, and I was the representative on the West Side City's COG, there was controversy about this project, about the Sepulveda Transit Corridor, a lot of controversy. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands the background before we move forward and, approve or don't approve. And so that would be very helpful. David, if you could do that, if you could provide that information, or whoever.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is David Fenn, Senior Planner in the Long Range Planning Division. So the item before you tonight came from a request to the West Side City's COG to take action individually, supporting two of the priorities that the COG has already endorsed for the Sepulveda project. Those are a station directly on the UCLA campus and a seamless connection to the Purple Line, which is the way that our residents would access the project. In terms of the background on the Sepulveda project and the controversy that Councilmember Meister is referring to, that dates back to before the passage of Measure M, when the West Side cities were largely in agreement that with the E-line extension to Santa Monica and the D-line extension to UCLA and Westwood, that the other cities were fairly well served by rail service, and that K-line North and service to West Hollywood should be the next priority. At that time, there was pressure from elected officials representing Los Angeles and the San Fernando Valley, Councilmember Mike Bonin, Supervisor Kuehl, Mayor Garcetti at the time, that were interested in moving Sepulveda up in the prioritization of the West Side's priorities. And that prioritization ultimately resulted in pressure being placed on the other cities, which moved Sepulveda forward in the timeline at the expense of K-line North, which obviously, as you all know, we've been working for several years to kind of come up with additional funds to make up for that. But all that, with all that, the item before you tonight does not, imply any kind of change in the preference of the city of West Hollywood towards one project or the other. Obviously, our priority would still be the K-line Northern Extension. We would simply be kind of stating that we are supporting the actions the West Side COG has taken on those two specific design elements of the Sepulveda project. It wouldn't be changing our preference or indicating, undoing that unfortunate history in any way.
Thank you. We have one public commenter, Kevin Burton. Do we have citizen position slips? Great.
Good evening again, Council. Kevin Burton, City of West Hollywood. I just wanted to indicate my support for this item. I've been to a couple of the in-person meetings in Westwood about the Sepulveda Transit Corridor project. There's a lot of discussion back and forth. There is currently discussion about whether or not a branch should go to UCLA. I think that would be a very good idea and would ultimately serve West Hollywood. And I just wanted to quote a statement from Focus Area 3 Economic Development from your just passed WeHo 2040 strategic plan, that the city shall advocate for expansion of transit options that strengthen West Hollywood's connectivity to the broader region. And I think that having a voice in this coalition, which I haven't memorized the whole thing, Sepulveda Transit Corridor for All, STC for All Advocacy Coalition, will help the city to implement that part of the strategic plan. Whatever the current proposal is, you ought to have your voice in that coalition, along with the West Side Cities, Council of Governments, Cities of Beverly Hills, and Santa Monica. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Seeing no other comments, there was a motion and a second. All right. All right, that passes 5-0. We're going to move on to our last public comment for the evening. Thank you, city staff. All right, is Katie Arabella Crespo still here? Oh, come on down, Katie. To be followed by Scott Schmidt, who's not here. Is Brian Hibbard here? Oh, hello.
Hello. Ooh. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Arabella Crespo. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for the nonprofit of the Phoenix, the national organization that provides free activities and events for the sober and recovery community. For some of y'all, you hopefully remember me. Ha, cute, adorable, I know. Last time I was here was to thank y'all for our 2023 New Year's Eve party. And guess what, y'all? It's about to be 2024 New Year's Eve. So just here to talk a little bit about how this is not just a party, but it's the party. Last year, we had about 650 people in attendance. We had Selena Estides perform, which is drag queen royalty. And the most beautiful part about it all was that we were able to ring in the new year with love, community, and sobriety. So that was so important for us. And this year we wanted to be just as big, if not bigger. One of the things that we learned last year was, unfortunately, we had to turn people away because of the fire codes and capacity and stuff like that. And that's something really hard to turn someone away. At a regular club, it's okay, they can go to another club. But at a sober event, it's kind of hard to find another one, at least nearby. And so we would love, love, love if there is a possibility for consideration in an increase in the budget. That way we can maybe find a venue that would be able to afford more people. That's just a consideration. In general, though, we are so excited to be able to have this event again. Some holidays are really hard to be sober. Some of them super easy, like Arbor Day. National Bacon Day, you know, those are pretty easy to stay sober in. But New Year's Eve is a little bit of a toughie one, and so we want to make sure that we still continue to provide this event for people to always have a safe place within the community. On that note, I just want to let you guys know the theme. Last year's theme was Alien Superstar, so very sparkly, very alien-ish. This year is Hot Cowgirl Rodeo. Pink cowgirls, like sparkly boots, all that stuff. So we hope to see you there on the dance floor.
Thank you, Katie. Selena Estedes, otherwise known as my neighbor. So, literally. We're going to move right along. Brian, to be followed by Richard Eastman.
Hi, I'm Brian. I work in West Hollywood, and you can see I have my hair styled in pigtails, but I promise not to yell at anybody.
Okay.
Inside joke. I'm here to warn you all and everyone in the city about Larry Block. Larry works hard, and when he takes on a project, he's tireless and monomaniacal. If you've ever worked with Larry, you'll know that except for sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night, he never stops thinking about his work. Whether it's Block Party, WeHo Online, the WeHo Pride Guide, or his community activism, while most people go home and work and relax with a book or TV series, Larry goes home and continues poring over details, making lists, and strategizing for the next day. So beware, because it's sometimes difficult to keep up with someone twice my age who is also vision impaired. Larry gives 100% to absolutely everything he does, and I can say with confidence that he will bring the same tenacious work ethic to the City Council. But drive is only part of the equation. How well does Larry work with others? What guides his thinking? Larry treats people he works with like family. He'll buy and deliver you lunch. Ask how you're doing. Ask if you're happy. How many people in your life, even your friends, ask you that regularly? He understands that humans make mistakes, and so he never holds a grudge. I know this because I've had my share of gaffes during our endeavors. His attention to our seniors, disabled residents, and pedestrians shows he's a caring person. I've watched Larry meeting with other politicians, business owners, and residents. He knows how to listen more than talk. He knows when to seek advice from others who have greater knowledge on a subject than he does. He possesses the most important skill one can have, the ability to take new information, learn, and evolve. Larry stands apart from the other candidates. He'll add a much-needed balance to the City Council, and we should give him a chance to try his ideas, because the old ideas don't seem to be working. Many of you have probably heard the definition of insanity is repeating the same action and trying and expecting different results. Larry has concrete goals and actionable plans on insight accumulated from over 30 years living and running a business with his council.
Thank you, Brian. Good job. Richard Eastman, to be followed by Phil Smith, Yasi Atia, Lola Kahania.
Oh my God, here I am, the old gay white man with AIDS in the city that I came to in 1965 to help 3 or 4 other women, Adam Schiff for United States Senate, Larry Block for West Hollywood City Council, and my dear friend, the former DA of the hometown that I immigrated to Hollywood, East Hollywood, even though I changed America from West Hollywood. You know, 71 years ago was 1953, and when I worked at Paramount Pictures with Ann Robinson for the 25th anniversary of War of the Worlds, that's long before I rebuilt the Hollywood sign in 1977 and 78, or maybe before I got AIDS. And I want to thank this city for helping AIDS walk for 40 years, and Eastman walking for 30 years, and the great work my grandmother did to educate a little kid to work for John F. Kennedy. And I like to say I worked for Kennedy and Kamala. And the other K is that knucklehead and the one that retired. And if we need to retire somebody up there, we need to give Larry Block a chance. Because if I have to move to West Hollywood from the chateau I live in Hollywood for 36 years and run for mayor, not governor, Antonio Villaraigosa is going to do that after he took illegal money from MedMen. If she's elected, the United States Justice Department are my friends. People think I got the FBI high. Maybe I did. Washington, D.C., mushrooms are legal. Dennis Perrone, Legacy Project. A lot of crap's going on with the homeless and your streets and the crime, and I still don't got a TV camera in front of the bus station. But I want you to know one thing. Ask not what your country can do for you, but how you can change your country. Vote. Vote.
Thank you, Richard. Phil, Yassi, and Lola are not here. Do we have anybody? We have Jamie Francis on Zoom. That's our only one, right?
Good evening, Council. I appreciate you taking this time. I just wanted to give you some insight of what I've had to go through the last 13 years as a resident. Why I say this is that I've been on your affordable housing list for over 11 years. To not reach people in your division, people changing capacities, and it was hard for me to find available housing options, and I had to go to the West Hollywood Community Housing Corporation. Even to the degree where I was offered a unit on La Brea when I said to them it is not compatible because I'm a victim of crime. And yet no one listened to certain issues that residents may have, certain medical conditions, and here I am, over 13 years, having to be stuck in the same units I didn't want to be in, and wanted to live on Sunset Corridor. And now I have an opportunity to live in Marina Del Rey because I waited so long for West Hollywood to act and give me housing opportunities. Speaking to, Mr. Schroeder, as well as Ms. Langer, or somebody in the rent stabilization department, I never got any feedback when it was worthwhile. And it's disappointing because I've waited and waited. And now here I am, my last 2 months residing in this city. And I'm bitter about it. I really am. And I wanted to speak about, certain micro units and available housing that the city is now required by the state because of RENA numbers for mandates to include housing that's not already available because you didn't achieve the goals and available housing that should have been provided, and options for us city residents, instead of not being offered to remain in the neighborhood or getting housing opportunities of our choice, but being told to your face, well, you're not homeless, you're not without housing. Well, what about preferences? And I'm just a little disgusted. I have to be honest. I've resided here, I've been active here, I've been vocal here, I've done this, and yet I can't live.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
Jamie, your time is up. Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to move on to councilmember comments and meeting attendance reports. Councilmember Meister, I know you're dying to go first.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just, on the consent calendar, I just want to repeat again to note my no vote on item B8, the ordinance on micro units. Attendance, I attended the AIDS Walk 40th anniversary opening ceremony. And I believe several people already announced it, but I'll announce it again. The Disability Service Awards will be held October 23rd right here at Council Chambers at 6 p.m. and a reception will begin earlier at 5:30. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Councilmember Shine.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who came and spoke and called in to speak. I attended the West Side Council of Governments board meeting, the League of California Cities annual conference, during which I presided over the LGBTQ caucus meeting as outgoing president. We had our LGBTQ caucus taco party. Congratulations to Vice Mayor Chelsea Byers, that I had the privilege of nominating her and swearing her in as Vice President of the Cal Cities LGBTQ caucus. Went to the BBK reception, and I was a part of the resolutions committee, and we voted yes on a resolution requesting that when the state Senate and Assembly members create legislation, that the senators and assembly members not exempt themselves from the legislation that they present. And enjoy a safe and happy Halloween and Samantha.
Thank you, Councilmember Heilman.
Yes, I also attended the AIDS walk. I want to thank everyone who participated and came out and support the walk. I also want to make sure we invite everyone to Halloween and remind people that it's probably not a good idea to bring your pets, particularly small dogs. It's very challenging for them. Probably also not a good idea to bring young children in strollers because of the congestion of people there. But hopefully everyone will come out and celebrate, and look forward to seeing you.
Vice Mayor Byers.
Thank you. Due my attendance, it was a busy couple weeks, so apologies. I attended the California Cities Conference, where I also had the opportunity to tour the future site of offshore wind production in the port of Long Beach. I sat in on the LA County Selection Committee, the Los Angeles County Affordable Housing Solutions Board meeting, and the local city coordination and tenant protections ad hoc committees, the Clean Power Alliance meeting, and I was also sworn into the West Side Central Service Council for Metro, which I'm very excited about. I will say ditto. Hope to see everyone at Halloween Carnival and appreciate Councilmember Heilman's reminders. On that note, we had a fabulous youth Halloween Carnival and a dog festival for Halloween. I won't even try to get the name right. And just want to give major kudos to our recreations team for pulling off just such fabulous warm events. It was a really great way to start the fall and get Halloween going in the city. That's all.
Thank you so much. In terms of meeting attendance reports, I attended the Being Alive ribbon cutting ceremony, where I'm still nursing my thumb from cutting the ribbon. Yes, that is an occupational hazard, because that scissors really hurt. The Cal Cities Conference, the Show Her the Money event, which was so well attended here, the Williams Institute Unity event, and today we did the AIDS Monument groundbreaking up the street, and I'm really excited for that. And additionally, I too just want to echo Vice Mayor Byers, the Youth Halloween Carnival is always lit, but this year it was off the charts. There were so many families, so many smiles. I mean, the costumes, the dogs, I think I saw a cat at one point, but it was truly just incredible. And our recreation staff went above and beyond. All city staff involved went above and beyond. And Pickle, I think, named every child for like 2.5 hours as they strutted across that stage. So it was pretty amazing to see. And I had so many people come up to me and they said, I live just right north of Fountain, and so I don't live in WeHo, but like you're the park I come to, and thank you for doing this for us and our families and our cities. It was just so wonderful to see all the beauty in our park that day. So truly, truly, truly thankful. Additionally, I just really want to thank our Sheriff's Department and our EPT team for bringing hopefully some justice to the individual at Barney's Beanery who was senselessly attacked by an individual. I will be at the press conference tomorrow to show support for the Sheriff's Department. I know that has been some cause for consternation in the community because it's scary when that happens, of course, but really thank you for searching, never giving up, and continuing to do all of that work. It's really important to know that you're working really hard, and I know the community's already been texting me and responding as a result of this news because they're glad to see that something has been done. And it's good news, and I hope the individual is still recovering. I have been in touch with the staff at Barney's Beanery since this happened, as I know you have, and truly on behalf of all of us, thank you so much. So with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 8:57 until Monday, November 4th at 6 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Success. This is my